So thank you. Good morning. My name is Paul Hebert, and on behalf of the Executive Board, I'd like to welcome you all to the 2019 ACHA Annual Meeting. And at this time, we'd like to start with our official roll call. Let me call this meeting to order first, and then we'll start with our official roll call. So starting here, stand up, tell me your name and where you're from, and we'll go right across the room.
Craig Barnett, Al Murdoch's friend with the ACHA.
Kristen Wright, USA Hockey.
Ashley Levin, USA Hockey.
Mark Abney, Lindenwood University.
Arthur Stevenson.
Dan Huntley, University of Mary.
Aaron Nelson, University of Mary.
John Camp, University of Georgia.
Kevin Gaffney, LTU.
Mark Van Vliet, Aquinas College.
Jordan Pomona, Aquinas College.
John Hogan, Marysville University. Wade Revere, Minot State.
Don Lowe, University of Wisconsin.
Greg Casser, Central Oklahoma.
Dan Roy, Grand Canyon University. Eric Fowler, University of Colorado.
Bill Wright, UMass Amherst.
Lincoln, Bishop University.
Mike, USF. Eric Navy, Florida Gulf Coast. Frank Worth, Florida Gulf Coast University. Richard Spizik, Florida Gulf Coast University.
Jason White, Midland University.
Ryan Miner, Minot State.
Whitney Owens, Arizona State.
Rob Blackburn, Michigan State University.
Ben Glisson, University of Michigan Women.
Gary Quick, University of Michigan Women.
Josh Rubiano, University of Michigan Women's. Mary Fuller, University of Nebraska.
Larry Taylor, University of Nebraska. Boss.
Brian Cable, Northwestern.
Steve Casson, Missouri State University. Stan Melton, Missouri State University.
Ryan Armstrong, Missouri State University.
Jeremy Long, Missouri State.
Chad Berman, Arizona.
Dessner, University of Colorado.
Joe Dallas, Patterson University.
Bruce Kosensky, Rowan University.
David Moxley, Brown University. Larry Shannon, Stillwater College.
Lawrence Coleman, Cinnamon College.
James Rowe, Cal U. Casey Greenway, Cal U. Gary Glenn, Cal U. Pat Dunn, University of Tampa. Steve Cuteri, University of Tampa.
Alicia Day, Aquinas College. Katie O'Brien, Aquinas College. Maria Barlow, Concordia, Ann Arbor.
John Rink, Shippensburg University.
Jim O'Connor, East Stroudsburg University.
Mike Kander, the Stockton University.
Jay Turcotte, TD
I'd like to start off by recognizing a couple of special guests. First of all, Ashley Bevan from USA Hockey. Welcome, Ashley, as always. Our past president, Marshall Stevenson. Good to see you back. And one of our newest Hall of Fame inductees, Dr. Al Murdoch. Welcome, as always. So at this time, I'd like to recognize our community service winners, our players of the year, our coaches of the year, and our national champions per division, as well as our Hall of Fame inductees, which I just did, and our Don Spencer Award winner. So we'll go by division. If you could just hold your applause after each division, that would be great. So men's Division III, the Community Service Award went to University of Georgia. The Player of the Year went to Ryan Venderman, Sioux College. Coach of the Year, Anderson McConnell from University of Kansas. And the national champ was Sioux College. Congratulations. At the Women's Division II, a Community Service Award went to the University of Delaware. The Player of the Year was Madeline Norton from University at Buffalo. The Coach of the Year was John Mioli, Loyola University, Maryland. And the national champ was Assiniboine College. Congratulations. At the Men's Division II, the Community Service Award went to Brigham Young University. The Player of the Year was David Wong from Florida Gulf Coast University. The Coach of the Year was Mike DeFazio from UMass Amherst. And the national champion for the second year in a row was Florida Gulf Coast University. Congratulations. The Women's Division I, the Community Service Award went to Grand Canyon University. The Player of the Year was Lauren McDonald from Liberty University. The Coach of the Year, Jason White from Midland University. And the national champion for the second year in a row as well, Liberty University. Congratulations. Men's Division I, the Community Service Award went to University of Arizona. Player of the Year was Jake Townsend from Lindenwood University. The Coach of the Year was Chris Haltner from University of Michigan Dearborn. And the national champ, Minot State University. Congratulations. The overall Community Service Award went to the University of Arizona. Job well done. Awesome job. Congratulations. The 2019 Don Spencer Award went to Joe Augustine. Joe's always in the back. You know right where to find Joe. Congratulations, Joe. Job well done. And our two inductees to the 2019 Hall of Fame, Mike Sargo, who I don't believe is here, from West Virginia, and last but not least, Dr. Alan Murtaugh. Congratulations. Just a special thanks to Gordy for organizing the Hall of Fame and the Community Service Award. Thank you very much. And Taylor Hadley, for those of you who went to the banquet last night, awesome job. Congratulations. Thank you very much for filling in last minute. Thank you. So at this time, we're going to move to the acceptance of the minutes from 2018. Chris Perry is not here, so Paul Loudon, former secretary, is going to fill in and take care of that.
Good morning. Good morning. If you look in your packet on the second document, that's the minutes from last year. I'm sure last night you guys had a chance at the Tiki Bar to go through it page by page, front and back, and so we won't need to take too much time going through it this morning. Do we have an acceptance for the minutes from 2018? Motion? Push them back, Mike. Second? Get a second? Phil? Okay. Make a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Say aye. Any opposing? Abstentions? Thank you very much.
Okay, we're supposed to have a report from the treasurer, but he's not here at the moment, so we're going to skip ahead and do the report of the executive director, Craig Barnett.
Thank you, Paul.
Is that better? Yep.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning, everybody. For those I haven't met yet, I've been saying that all weekend, and I'm starting to meet more and more of you. But for those I haven't met yet, my name's Craig Barnett, and I'm honored to be in the role of the Executive Director of the ACHA. I just wanted to spend some time this morning and go through a report that I presented to the Board of Directors yesterday. And I have part of it up on the screen, and I'll go through some notes here. My report is in your packet as well, so you can refer to that, and be certainly happy to answer any questions that you may have in terms of the day-to-day operations of the ACHA. Before I move on, obviously, as we all know, we have a great staff. Working with Mo Strommel hand in hand this year. My 8 months in this position have been great. So I just want to publicly thank Mo. Certainly thank our 7 divisional commissioners this year on the job they did with you guys. I know they're instrumental in the communication piece and what you guys do for your teams, and what you guys and girls do for your teams. We have a great staff there. Russ Slago with the national tournament, AJ Bolden with our broadcasting, and it's been a pleasure to work with this group. So I'd just like to thank them for all the support and working with you guys, and more importantly, putting a great product together for your student and athletes to have a great experience playing college hockey. If you refer to your packet that I presented in your book, the first topic is the national tournament recap. I'm not going to bore you with too many details, but I think the big things to look at are, ticket sales for us, revenue stream coming in. The bottom line is right now we're at $163,000 in ticket sales, which is up from the previous 2 years in Columbus. If you look at the bottom of the slide here, you'll see what our numbers were in ticket sales in Columbus in 2017 and 2018. The good news is, with the Texas grant that we took advantage of going to Frisco, Texas, this is the first year that the tournament's actually paying for itself. We got some grant money, a lot of grant money from the state of Texas. I think the important thing from my perspective with the national tournament down in Frisco was I understand that, travel is difficult. It's not close for some teams, half the teams, most of the teams. We understand the logistics of that part and are sensitive to that part. But more importantly, from our perspective, we hope that the teams that participated in the national tournament that were down there, once the student and athletes got there, that they had a great experience. And a lot of the coaches I talked to, that was the case. And I don't want to, push aside maybe some challenges we had from an operations standpoint. We know firsthand that we have lots of room for improvement with the hotel situation, and we're working on that diligently right now, planning for next year. We had some big time challenges with our hotel situation, and we're aware of that. But at the end of the day, for those teams that were down there, the bottom line is about that experience, and hopefully your student athletes, for those of you that participated in that, had a great experience down in Frisco. The other information in your packet includes our merchandise sales, our where we are with our rebates right now. The hotel rebate thing, we're always open. I'm always open to listening to new ideas on that. I just want to make sure that we understand that the rebates that the ACHA gets from the national tournament, a lot of that is used to offset costs for that national tournament, obviously. We have a staff that we fly down or bus down and put up in hotels. It's a 2-week process. I think Russ Slagle, you were there for about 2 months preparing for that, at least 3 weeks. Costs like that. All the teams that participate in the national tournament, we have practice ice for them. We pay for that practice ice for our teams. So those are a couple examples of where that hotel rebate money, what happens to that money, okay, is to help offset some of the expenses at the national tournament. And when we can bring in enough revenue to cover the expenses for the national tournament and make it self-sustaining, it's a good situation. We certainly have some room to improve on that in terms of sponsorships and monetizing some of the products that we have at the national tournament, and we will continue to do so, and I'll talk about that briefly with my goals for 2019 and 2020. I talk a little bit in the packet there about Southwest Airlines. The bottom line with Southwest Airlines, we introduced that as an option. We were aware that it wasn't exactly 100% compliant for all 72 teams that qualified based on the timing of the regional play and when some teams found out they qualified for nationals. The deal with them was if we met a minimum amount of flights, of what they called segments, and then we can go back in year 2 and we would have more flexibility in terms of offering better options for our teams that qualified for nationals. Our minimum goal for Southwest Airlines was we had to have 350 round trip segments, and we came in north of 450. So we met that minimum, which means we get to sit down again with them for 2019 or 2020 national tournament, and hopefully come up with even some more incentives to help take care, hopefully help you guys that are coming down with your budgets. They were great to work with, but when you deal with the airline industry, there's a lot of hard deadlines that we had no control over, and that's why we weren't 100% compliant for our teams in year 1 of this deal. Our hope is in year 2 that we will have a more user-friendly type of deal so that everybody could take advantage of it. If you look on the, let's call it the 3rd page there with broadcast and recap at the top of your page. I'll be, and AJ knows this, when I first took this role, I didn't quite understand why the ACHA was owning its own broadcasting. And, I came from the junior hockey background where hockey TV and the old fast hockey, everybody did that. And, these guys show up and they sit in the corner of the rink, and, the quality of the broadcast isn't too good. But you never, as an administrator, you never had to worry about that. Got to know AJ, told me a lot about what they do. And you know what? Until you see it, it's unbelievable. The job that they did this year, I think there's a tremendous amount of value to the ACHA. When we were out selling our programs, and all the coaches hopefully can attest to this in here, when you're recruiting, and recruiting is our bloodline, you're always looking for ways to separate yourself from the other schools or the other leagues or the other organizations that those prospective student athletes might be looking at. And this is a separation factor. Our broadcasting is a separation factor. And from what I understand, we just completed year 2 of a 3-year project with this. And I entertained some friends, some colleagues, a couple NHL people at our tournament down in Frisco. Walked them around behind I call the black curtain, the Wizard of Oz curtains across the rink there. And when they saw the operations, when they saw the equipment, and more importantly, when they saw the product on the ACHA TV station and the high def channels in the games and the way it went, it was phenomenal. In your packet, there's some numbers there of the success of the broadcasting this year, the value add-ons, which are the improvements from 2018 to what we did this year in 2019, what AJ did with his staff. And I just think it was a fantastic job that they did to promote the ACHA, and more importantly for the teams that were participating in the national tournament. One of the big improvements, which was really cool, was this moments videos that they created. Now it was the first year. I don't believe we had moments from all 5 divisions yet, but that's in the plan for next year. But just for those that might have never seen this, there was about, I'm guessing maybe 20 different moment type of videos. And if this works properly, we will watch this 1:10. I think this is about 1 minute and 10 seconds long. So again, just capturing moments. There's 26 of those that we did this year, that AJ did this year. Many of them had the play-by-play in part of it. Many of them showed highlights of the games. I wanted to capture a shorter one, so I don't waste too much of our time tonight, or today. But I wanted to make sure that we saw the quality of the type of stuff that they do, which again I think is a huge recruiting tool for our coaches to use when you're out recruiting. Moving on to the national tournament for the future. For those of you in the room that participated in the general membership survey, I really appreciate it. We put out there the proposals that we've received for 2021 and beyond, and it was important for us to get input from our membership on different locations and so forth. And, as a former coach, I mean, I hope we looked at it from two perspectives. We certainly look at it as a coach for your team and location and travel costs and all that. And that's very important, and I understand that. And certainly understand that maybe the way some of us voted were based on where your location is and where these options may be for 2021 and beyond. And that's perfect because you need to stay within your budgets, and we're always challenged at that. So that's something that, again, we're sensitive to. The second piece is with this concept that we're doing right now, having all 5 divisional tournaments under, in one city. We also need to look at what's best for the entire ACHA that we feel and make recommendations here to the board. So with that in mind, we had 166 responses to our general membership survey regarding this piece. I have these. This is hard to read, but it's also in your packet here toward the back, Appendix B on page 1 and 2. So basically, the 5 proposals we have are from St. Louis, Missouri, with the St. Louis Blues brand new practice facility that they're building with 4 rinks, 3 indoor rinks, and an outdoor option with it's not really an outdoor rink. It's a huge covered rink, but they have an option there. The St. Louis Blues facility is phenomenal. The St. Louis Blues would be very, very engaged in this process themselves. They're the type of NHL market team that these types of events would be important for them to have, and we had a great site visit there. I've been there twice already, and there's a lot of advantages to it. And obviously, just like everything, there may be some challenges for some of the membership and so forth. But again, when at the end of the day, we will make the best recommendation possible to our membership. Boston is another option here for us. One of the visions I have, and for those of you that know me and my background, I've been you know, blessed to work for the North American Hockey League for 7 years prior to my role here now with the ACHA. And one thing that they do a great job at is marketing in the events that they run. And for those of you that are familiar, and I see a lot of faces, the ACHA coaches' faces that go to the NA3HL showcase and the NAHL showcase all up in Blaine at the Schwann Super Center. I vision our national championships with these 5 divisions. If we have the opportunity to have it under one roof with 8 sheets of ice, that would be one heck of a festival. And that would be one heck of a thing for our student athletes experience. You know, the advantages are perhaps we can go from a 14-day, 12-day tournament down to a 6 or 7-day tournament. We could have crossover with M1, M2, M3, W1, W2. Right now in Frisco, it's great, but, you know, we utilize Frisco and Plano and McKinney, and sometimes there's not a lot of crossover. I'd love to get the opportunity to have everybody under one roof and make it a festival atmosphere. Blaine, so that's Blaine, Minnesota. Going back to Boston, has the same opportunity with the New England Sports Center. You know, again, I think they're the only 2 facilities in the United States that have 8 sheets of ice under one roof. The New England Sports Center and the Schwann Super Rinks. So those 2 both put proposals in as well. John Graves from the Ice Line Quad Rinks in Westchester, very interested as well. In Philadelphia, which I understand the ACHA has been there before. We just had our All-Star Challenge there, so I think a lot of our membership are familiar with that facility. Another great location in the East. And then we do have a 3rd-year option in Frisco. And those are the 5 locations that have put forth proposals for 2021 and beyond. And within your packet, you can see where the membership feels where they would like to go. The overall ranking of locations there, basically we asked a 1 through 5, 1 being your number 1 preference, 5 being, you know, the last preference you'd have. So when you added up everybody, they came out with a raw score, and you can see what the raw scores are there, and they're all pretty tight. You know, St. Louis led with a 3.33 overall. Boston was a 3.32. Blaine was a 3.19. Philadelphia 2.89. And then Frisco at 2.27. So valuable information. Where we are right now, I am also sensitive to the timing of this. I think there's 2 things that the coaches want, at least 2 things. One, you want to know when it's going to be for your schedule, right? And you want to know where it's going to be and when, the dates. And right now we just received some new financials back from 2 of these bids as they fine-tune their pencils, for lack of a better term. So my goal is to have a chance to go through that in the next 5 to 7 days, get the recommendation to the board so we can announce to our membership, taking into consideration as well your input, where we're going to be in 2021, 2022, you know, and maybe we lock in 2023 depending on how everything shapes out. I would like to, this is an important piece, I understand, so I would like to ask if there's any questions on this topic right now that I could try and answer for you. Is there any questions at all regarding the future locations of the national tournament for 2021 and beyond? Yes, sir. Which location is closest to the most teams? I believe that would be either in the East with Boston or Philadelphia, and also St. Louis is close to a lot of our teams as well. I think the difficult part to see is, if you're an M1 guy, there's not a lot of M1 teams in the East. If you're an M2 or M3 guy, there's not a lot of teams in certain geographical locations. But that piece is being taken into consideration. It's a great question. I don't think we should be looking at M1, M2, M3. I think we look at a location and say, there's 300 teams on this location, 200 teams on this location. Correct. Correct. That's definitely something we're taking into consideration. Okay. Thank you. So these two slides here, again, are in your packet. I just put them up there in case it was easier to read, but obviously it's not that easy to read, so in your packets. ACHA marketing and brand awareness. Again, this is something I'm very passionate about. This is one big reason why I really wanted this job, because I think there's just terrific opportunity here. What this ACHA have done, what everyone in this room has done over the years is put together an incredible opportunity here for student athletes. You know, we started the year north of 500 teams, 48 states. What I think is important is getting in front of prospective student athletes. Obviously, coaches, we talked about recruiting and we understand the importance of that, but from a league perspective, as we can continue to enhance the brand awareness of the ACHA, I think that's a huge opportunity for us. And I've been spending time, if you look at page 6 of your document that's in your book there, some of the marketing tools that we've developed obviously are presentations like this that we aim toward whoever we're talking to. So when we get the opportunity to present to prospective student athletes and their parents, you know, we have marketing decks that we talk about the values and benefits of the ACHA. One of the things that we spend a lot of time with, at least I spent a lot of time early on trying to dig into what those values and benefits are. You know, I think that's a question that came up when I was talking to our membership and trying to introduce myself and get to know people and get to know your challenges and so forth. One of the things that stood out to me were what are, you know, the values and the benefits of the ACHA. And we need to continue to identify those. We need to continue to promote those. And as we continue to do that, that's going to allow our coaches to have an upper hand in their recruiting processes when they're dealing with these young players. If you look at Appendix C in your packet, this is a document that I shared around Christmas time on that holiday newsletter. We did a lot of work looking at the values and benefits where we are right now and trying to devise a plan of where we want to go with this. And we thought we should capture this and share it with a lot of people. So on the first page was just a quick snapshot, a marketing piece. It certainly looks a lot better in color than black and white. But you know, for somebody that doesn't know anything about the ACHA, this is a really a kind of a cool little snapshot of who we are. More importantly, if you look on the back page, the spreadsheet, so that would look like this in your packet on the spreadsheet. What we did is we looked around and did some research with other national club sports associations, and we compared what the ACHA offers in terms of benefits and values compared to other national sports associations. And we compared that to collegiate water polo, collegiate baseball associations, collegiate lacrosse associations, club football associations, and club basketball associations. And it's really telling. When you look at what the annual dues are and you say, okay, where's my money going? Where, you know, these kids are paying for to play ACHA hockey. Where's that money going? That's important to know. And that's what we started doing with this process. And when you compare it to what the dues are and the values and benefits from the national tournament, national recognitions, all those types of things, all the way down to the corporate sponsors, to membership with USA Hockey. And as we know, we're in the sporting business. The ACHA is a national governing body. And because of the way our culture is right now and what's going on outside our doors, you know, there's a lot of safeguards now being put in place to protect our student athletes in the youth. And being part of USA Hockey provides a lot of that, clearances, the backgrounds, everything that everyone's going to need to have now when we work with the youth. And that is a huge benefit and value of being a partner with USA Hockey, aside from the insurance piece. But what's going on, and Ashley will talk a little bit about what's going on with the new law that's going to be put in effect here, that all national governing bodies are going to be held to over the next 2 years. Again, if I was a parent looking at this, if I was an athletic director still, looking at where my teams are playing and who we're affiliated with, this piece in my eyes would be a huge value and a huge asset to have one of my non-varsity sports be part of. A lot of value, I think there's a lot of value in being able to say we're part of one of 17 world organizations, part of the NHL's Declaration of Principles. There's not a lot of places that, or not a lot of associations or organizations that could actually be able to hold that up and be part of that. We still need to dig down and figure out some of the values and benefits of being part of that. But hey, coaches, when you're recruiting, and you can use some marketing pieces that say you're part of one of 17 worldwide organizations that are part of the NHL Declaration of Principles. Maybe that's helpful as well. The other part that really helps me out when I get the opportunity to go and present about the ACHA is where do our players come from? And when I'm speaking to these parents of 9th graders or 10th graders right now, and they don't quite know what the ACHA is, it used to be when I was coaching, if I wasn't an NCAA Division I coach, those kids are like, hey, I'm going to play at Michigan State or bust, or I'm going to hang them up. It was all Division I. And now, it's not that way. The parents are more educated. There's an awful lot of NCAA Division I hockey players now playing either NCAA Division III and ACHA. There's just so many good hockey players out there right now. The coaching is so good. The kids are so good. The technology piece steps into that. And they're looking for more and more options. And that's why I think the ACHA has grown so much. And that's, again, why I really wanted this opportunity to be part of this team. And to be able to go and sell, again, what the ACHA is huge. So when moms and dads say, well, I'd never really heard of the ACHA, and they see that we have teams in traditional college markets, but more importantly, we have teams in non-traditional college markets. We have teams in 48 states. We have Division I, II, III on the men's side, Division I, II on the women's side. The top 25 universities in the world, 17 of them are in the United States. 14 of the top universities in the world have ACHA hockey programs. This is the type of thing that we want to continue to sell on the ACHA. When you look at the last page in your packet, this is a screenshot of one of the PowerPoints I use when I present. And what Gordy Schaeffler did this year with Men's Division I, this is the type of information we want to continue to start gathering from M2, M3, W1, and W2 so we can add it to the presentation. So when we're talking to prospective student athletes, where do they come from? Well, 88% of all men's Division I came from the United States. 11.5% came outside the United States. Canada, Sweden, Germany, and Russia were the top 4 non-U.S. hockey players that were part of the M1 this year. More importantly, when you look at the roster background, and Mo is going to talk here shortly about a new registration process, and we're hoping we can capture this information in the registration process. Talk about timing. I just mentioned your name, Mo, and you came in the door. That was perfect. But you forgot your guitar. This stuff is great to see. So if you have this in your packet and you look, Men's Division I, where did they play? Either U.S. high school or prep school was number 1. NA3HL or NAHL at one point was number 2. USPHL, U18 Tier 1 AAA, Eastern Hockey League, and then there was some NCAA Division III transfers. But those are the top leagues that our M1 rosters are made up of. And that's where we need to be, talking to those younger families that don't know about the ACHA and have that opportunity to talk about the ACHA. I was fortunate to work with some of the coaches that are here about 2-3 weeks ago when the Chicago Blackhawks put on a ACHA showcase at their new practice facility. There's several of you coaches here, 2 or 3 that I see, and that was the first time they did one of these types of showcases. It was an opportunity for us to come in and talk about the ACHA as a whole. Just like I do with other presentations, I'll talk about the junior option first, because if you're going to play ACHA, if you're going to play NCAA, chances are these young men on the men's side are going to have to go through junior hockey. And junior hockey, as we all know, is very, very chaotic. So I talk about the processes through junior hockey and how they connect with an ACHA opportunity. And I think that's important for those parents that are 9th grade kids and 10th grade kids to understand that what junior hockey is, and yes, it leads to these ACHA opportunities. And when they can see the makeup of our rosters, I think that connects some dots for them. And that's something that I want to continue working with, and I want to continue gathering information from this group and membership so we can put our best foot forward when I get the opportunity and our coaches get the opportunity to have this information to help you with recruiting. If you look at the bottom of page 6, that's just the opportunities I've had lately to go and make presentations on behalf of this membership. And I hope as we continue to market the values and benefits of the ACHA that, down the road here, a lot of kids will consider what we have to offer. I did briefly discuss the partnerships and sponsorships in your packet. Obviously, that's a room for opportunity to keep on growing there on the sponsorship side. We're looking at ways to create new revenue streams coming in to obviously offset some of our expenses and so forth. And anytime we can offset expenses, hopefully our membership is better for that as well. For those of you that weren't in Frisco, just a quick snapshot there of our partners and our sponsors. We captured all that on one of the banners we had throughout the rink. I think the partnership that we have with the America Hockey Coaches Association here is being part of this whole group. For those coaches in here that had a chance to go to those breakout meetings and listen to some of these other coaches give ideas about power play and team culture and all that stuff, that's certainly a value. Being part of the Hockey Coaches Care, being able to give a donation to the Hockey Coaches Care Foundation here on Wednesday night, I think was great for the ACHA. I do want to point out that we're not giving away money. So for those teams that might have been fined or had appeals that were denied this year, that's where that check came from. We put it to a good cause. And I just wanted to make sure that we understood that. But I think there's value in the AHCA being part of that and being here. And certainly I've already talked about our value and respect for the U.S. being part of USA Hockey. So my goal is just wrapping this up here. Then I'll certainly try again answer any questions I can from our membership here. But my goals are pretty simple moving forward. The first thing we're doing on M2 and M3 is we are going to go back to one commissioner. I think the co-commissioners this year was something worth looking into. Mo and I met with our divisional commissioners. We had self-evaluations at the end of the year, and we had great meetings. Our commissioners were very straightforward with us, mostly on the M2, M3 side, where we had co-commissioners because of the the amount of teams we have, which is great. But we're going to revert back to the one commissioner, and we think that's going to be more streamlined, more efficient for Mo, especially when he's dealing with our leaders at that level. We're going to consolidate a few positions. I'm not going to get into too much of this, but we're going to consolidate a few positions as well to try to be more streamlined. The internal communication system is a goal of mine, to make sure that we have an efficient process in place. And for those of you that might have attended the town hall meeting yesterday, thank you for coming. I thought it was a great conversation. And a lot of the conversation was about how we can improve our communication to our membership, and that's certainly one of the goals for me for this coming year. I think we're going to be able to capture a lot of that and improve that with the new registration process, but we're also going to continue to look at new ideas too, so we can communicate effectively with our membership. I want to keep going with the town hall meetings this year that we had, and I understand some of our membership were unaware of those town hall meetings, and we'll continue to improve that so everyone knows that we do have on conference calls. We had a town hall meeting for three different times this year, and it was an opportunity, one, for me to introduce myself to membership the first time. The other two times we talked about issues and things that were going on in different areas of our membership, and hopefully we found that valuable, and I'd like to continue going on with that so I have some connection with our league leaders and our coaches. Certainly want to nurture and cultivate partnerships and sponsorships. Want to talk a little bit here on this one committee that we have going now. We finally got it up and going. We put together an ad hoc committee. There's been some interest from membership about looking to see if there's a market out there for a division that, for lack of a better term, would be a non-tournament bound division. And for those of you that saw, we put out an application and asked for people to apply to be part of the committee, the ad hoc committee. And we had a structure around that, and we selected a committee. There's 8 members on the committee. And we understand that there's a lot of teams out there that might not need the value of going to a national tournament or national recognition or whatever, but they still want to be part of the ACHA. There's some values that they need, and there's some values that they don't necessarily need, and is there a market out there for that? And that's something that we're interested in. We put a committee together. We had a great phone call this week leading up to Naples. We went around the horn from different areas of the country, and different league leaders talked about what they're experiencing, and we've identified anywhere from 30 to 40 possible teams right now. And what we're going to do, and I know Steve Hijack will talk about this at the M3 breakout meeting, what we're going to do now on our next call within the next couple weeks is start to frame some criteria around what that would look like. You know, what types of benefits do they want or need? Which types do they not want or need? And what would that cost be? You know, we would hope that we could, the goal would be to get something in place for this coming year, but we can't promise that because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But I can promise if there's an interest, we will work toward that. And if we're not ready to go, we don't want to roll out a crappy product for our student athletes. If you stick with us, you know, we would be ready to go that following year. Again, if we come away from this committee and we have a really good plan to be able to make that recommendation to the board, I think would be a positive thing. At the very least, we're looking at this. We've got a lot of people from different areas providing important information about this possible opportunity, and that's what we want to do. So I appreciate, for those of you that are in here, that are part of that committee, thank you, and we'll continue to work hard to examine if there is a market out there for this opportunity. Brand awareness, broadcasting for nationals, and hotel situations. And I'm sure my goals will continue to be added after today, but that right now is a snapshot of what I want to do, and I want to be able to be a good representative of this membership. So if there's other things that from your area that you need help with or solutions with, you have a chain with our divisional commissioners to go through. but you can also reach out to me as well, because I'd like to get to know you and understand our landscape. Did I talk a long time, Paul? Is there any questions that I could try and answer for you right now? Come on, I woke up at 6 a.m. to be here, and there's no questions. Yes.
Do you have plans to attend any U19, 20 women's tournaments, things like that for this upcoming season?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I'd like to get more information on that side as well. Sorry about that. I'm fortunate. I live in a town, as a lot of you know, that does have a lot of ACHA hockey too, so I get a lot of information from that women's side. But if you have showcases, if you have opportunities for me to be able to come and talk on behalf of the ACHA with the marketing stuff, yeah, please reach out to me. I would be honored to come and speak on that behalf. If you know of showcases that I should look at, please let me know. I might already know them, but I might not already know them either, so it might be new to me. I just looked out and saw one of my former players there. How's it going, Jason? Great to see you in the coaching world. Sorry about that, but it just happened. So please let me know. Yes, thank you very much. Even on the men's side as well. There's a lot of those showcases popping up as well. You know, we just want to make sure we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck, and there's you know, worthy prospective student athletes and families at those showcases. So, all right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Craig. We have found our treasurer, and he's moving to the front. You ready, Jimmy? Jimmy Martin.
Great, thanks, Paul. Okay, great. Well, he's got the clicker coming, so till then I'll do that. Sorry I'm a little late. I was leaving the hotel room, and I had this giant pot of beans, and I slipped and fell, and the beans went all over the street, and there I was laying in the middle of it. But no office fans, so oh well. Okay, so building on what Craig said, and maybe a little different take on it. Craig said he won't bore you with the details. I will. So we'll grind through some of the financials this year. We'll probably look at it a little more in depth than prior years, just because there were some questions and things. People thought that there was the need for more information. That although we did have a session yesterday, we met for quite a while and went through a lot of the financials, asked a lot of questions of people, or people had a lot of questions. We went through, answered what was going on with that, and so hopefully that'll take care of a lot of the detail that we'd otherwise need to do here. But certainly as we go through that, please ask any questions you have. I know I think I've talked to a lot of teams throughout the year. I did miss a meeting last year, I guess, or the year before, and somehow my cell phone number got put on the Point Street registration help screen. So I talked to a lot of teams about basically any question that they'd ever have, because it's right there on the main website. And it's something that we have to keep in mind, is that, you know, it is an association. It's an association of a lot of teams that cover a lot of real estate in the United States. And when we talk about things like where should nationals be, things like that, there's not a place that's perfect for everybody. And when we say we can get it near more teams, does that mean that we should always have it near the geographic center of where everybody is, or do we have the responsibility to help other regions try to build that out? Those are the discussions we have around this. we also have to remember that there's a tremendous variation in the support that teams get. We have teams that are, you know, on M1, we have teams that are very well supported. A lot of them are run by the school. They have a lot of resources in that. I get calls from teams that say, hey, they told me I got to register or something, and I'm a senior now, and they just gave me this envelope that there's a checkbook and like a phone number, and I called it, and what do I do? That's what I have. And there's a lot of teams that are in that class too, and so thank you. And so we have to remember there's a lot of variation in the resources that teams have, and we try to keep that in mind as we set up programs and support things. We have to support teams that have a lot of different capabilities and a lot of different issues that they face as they try to put a good experience together. So, but we'll stick to the financials, as I say. Please raise your hand and ask any questions you have. Here's the makeup of teams this year. I think Craig talked a little bit about how many teams we have. I probably should have put a total on there, but I think it's 530 or something. But the variation and the makeup of that, almost half are M2. M3 is the next biggest. M1 up at the top, and then the women's divisions are the wedges there on the side. And so historically, here's the growth of teams over time. And I put this together with Ashley and Brian, and they had a lot of older data that we were able to put together. But this is the growth of the ACHA from its inception. You can see way down there in 1999, and so now we've grown to 530 teams. And I think we've got another probably 25 or 30 teams coming on board for next year. What this does is it creates differences in how we have to run the league and how we have to support things. And as the ACHA has grown, the need for more support has grown too. The ACHA is still fundamentally a volunteer-driven organization. We now have Craig. We're fortunate to have Craig, who is, I suppose, our most full-time employee. And we also have Mo is helping him out now. But what the commissioners do, and you have to appreciate what the commissioners do, what the board does, to a certain extent what I do, although that's not the point of this. What the rest of them do is they're putting their time into this because they believe in the association. And you can look at the stipend number, which is growing. It's larger now. But if you look at the money we actually pay the commissioners, that we actually pay people to do stuff, for those that do receive some stipend, it in no way represents the effort that they put into things. I mean, it probably would be 50 cents an hour in certain cases that they put that much time into it. And so please keep that in mind, that it still is volunteer-driven. We don't have a big staff. We don't have a whole lot of people to go to, and we have a whole list of stuff that needs addressing, and that list seems to grow more than the volunteers that we have to help out with stuff. So certainly, as I emphasized yesterday, if you have ideas about something, if you know somebody that can help out with something, one of the things that came up yesterday was, what does the board think about, getting a large sponsor? Yeah, that's terrific. I think that's great. If you know of somebody that would be interested in doing that, like if your father is the president of General Motors, actually, that would be a woman. That's a woman. So if your grandmother or your mother was the president of General Motors, and they would be interested in sponsoring us, we would love to talk to them. If you know someone who goes out and does like corporate mining, contacts people, and tries to get donations, love to talk to them. Just please let us know about that, because again, it is absolutely your association, and if you have ideas that can help, we'd certainly love to hear from that. So it just is, when you look in 500 teams, and that's why when we talk about allocating commissioners and support for the commissioners, it becomes challenging sometimes, especially with the big numbers in like D2, for example. It's now over 200 teams, about 230 teams, which is larger than the ACHA was not that long ago. But it's finding the right mix of support. A lot of this goes back to, we had a member survey, and when you get those member surveys, if you could please make sure to fill those out. We really do look at those, we analyze it, and we take that to heart. We really do look at that data and try to come up with solutions to address the issues that are brought up there. And 4 or 5 years ago, the big issue was, the problem I have with the ACHA is, there's nobody to call. I call someone, I can't get a hold of them. We need support, and there's nowhere to go with that. And that's why we started looking at having more of a full-time executive director and having more staff to support the commissioners, because, believe me, and I know since my number's on there, when registration starts in the fall, there's a lot of questions that people have. And this year we're going to do some online training and record it, where you can watch some little videos about how it works and things, which should help. But there still is a lot of questions people have about, what do I do with this and what do I do with that? And we've tried to create now a safety net that teams can go to in order to get support for the issues that they have when they're doing registration, or even like making their payments and that, because we have a lot of things with that. So Some of the stuff that's still the same, we still have the same financial system, although it's been a little while since I've explained how the actual nuts and bolts of the accounting system work. The ACHA financial systems are, in all respects, a sealed system. It's a commercial treasury management system that's a product of PNC Bank. And I think we have teams here, some people here that work at PNC, and we always talk about that afterwards and that. So it's a thing called Pinnacle. All the payments into this are automated. I never touch a payment. We've only had one payment that I've ever had to take the bank in the history here, and that had to do with the sale of the shirts and stuff the first year in Columbus, because we did that. We had to make a deposit. Every other payment that comes in, your payment from your school, every payment for anything, from score sheets to anything, goes in automatically into the system. I don't touch any of that. For checks from the school, the Pinnacle system has a lockbox, which is basically a P.O. box. You send your thing in, it's that P.O., I don't remember, it's the Solution Center address in Chicago. Send your check in there, the bank goes to there, they make the deposit. I go online and I can see the deposit already in the account, and they have a copy of the check. Never touched by me or anybody else here at the ACHA. Bank takes care of that. More and more, and I'll have this on another slide too, but more and more the schools are moving to a formal vendor registration. And probably last year, I registered us as a vendor with about 30 to 40 different schools. They're either, they either say we're updating our ERP, we're updating our payment plans, so you got to register as a vendor. We have to submit a various amount of information depending on the school. But they also like to increasingly pay electronically. ACH is just an electronic deposit. Again, those go directly into the bank account. At the end of the month, I pull a list and have to record those and apply the payments to the list in that. Point Streak still has an option, although this may change next year as we work with USA Hockey on the registration process. When you complete your registration currently, you can pay right then with a credit card if you have that, and that's an option for some schools that'd like to do that. A lot of schools still will pay by check and ACH because, again, it's a formal vendor application. They have to issue a PO to get the payment out of the school, and we still will have that, and that'll still work going forward, as will this thing where you can actually pay for your credit card right there. This is probably, I would bet, we still get about 60% of our payments by check in the lockbox. Point Streak is about another 30%, and ACH is probably about 10% of the payments, although more and more schools are asking about paying electronically. So, but irrespective of how they come in, they all directly go in. The ACHA store, and that's the Shop ACHA, where you may have been there to pay a fine or buy score sheets and that. That's a website that I run. They had an update, and we reskinned it, I think, last year or the year before that. It looks, not bragging about it, but it looks terrific. And that's not me. That's just the way the software works. It's there's this out of the box. You can create a really good looking website, but that still is me. That's just me sending the stuff out. And I get people call or send an email to the contact form. Hey, what are your hours there? Well, it depends what time I get home from work today, but yeah, I'll get your stuff out. But there's not really a staff. Somebody called and asked, is that a third party? Is that a staff? No, that's just me in my living room. So, but we send those things out, and again, these payments then just drop right into the bank account as well. So right from the store in there, and then this year we have a new. We've been around a couple years. It's been dormant since Columbus, where we're selling apparel, but Square website is where we have the Warrior stuff. And if you've been to the Warrior site, there's some really good stick deals out there. There's going to be new products this year. I don't think Craig talked about that. Maybe he'll talk about that a little later. But that's a Square website. When you order stuff on there, that payment, again, drops right into – it's a different account within the Pinnacle system, but it still is in this integrated management system, but it's separate so we can keep track of those payments coming in. And then we get billed by Warrior and pay that on the way out. And so we'll see that in the financials when we look at that. But on the way out, then we pay by checks and do some ACH and wire payments too for some things. For example, we had the deposit on the hotels for the staff in Frisco. Those went by ACH. Those get all recorded. But all this stuff is right out of the system. And at the end of the month, every month, we have an independent CPA does the bank reconciliation. So by definition, everything that goes out would have to be in there, or else it's out of balance. If I forget to record something, it's out of balance. They find it. On the way in, if I forget to record something, they find it, correct it. So there is no manual anything. There's never any checks. There's never any cash. There's never any deposits that go to the bank. There's never handling of any of this. It's all done through this system, and it's all an integrated sealed container. So anyway, that's been there like that for 5 years, but I haven't talked about it for a while, but There's really nothing new there except the Square website. That's the way it was set up originally, and it still works that same way. Just everything's sealed. And some people, when they get new, I know when Craig and Mo came on, and we try ACHing their payment, there's so many controls and restrictions on this. Usually the payment will fail the first couple times, and they'll ask, why I didn't get paid and this and that. It's because there's some limit that's set up on there. Outbound ACH, we have a daily limit. We have a weekly limit. We have a cumulative limit on stuff. ACH is going out. That people, we do have a couple that automatically draft out for payments we owe. That has to be an override we put in. Nobody can just put in an ACH request. It's blocked, and so we have to really override and give authorization to everything that goes out of there. And it's designed to be very secure, just because we don't want anything going on there. And with the way the banking is, you read all kinds of things about people spoofing things, electronically making withdrawals that aren't authorized. But it's really very locked down with that. So some of the things that are now trends on the horizon that I was dealing with this year that are things coming up. Again, I mentioned the formal vendor registrations, and that's going to be happening as is the electronic payments and that. There is a change. Those of you that follow like accounting tech subjects, I don't know if that's one of the blogs you follow or anything. There was a case in South Dakota related to Nexus and the collection of state tax payments on retail sales. If you used Amazon for any period of time, you may notice that Amazon started collecting sales tax on your transactions, as did all the other online retailers. That's because of this litigation that changed the way that Nexus is defined. It used to be you had to have a physical presence in a state in order to collect and remit sales tax. What this found was if you have a significant amount of volume or a certain amount of volume, in essence, online transactions, you have a responsibility to commit to collect that as well. And so that's why online retailers are now collecting sales tax on that. And so this is an issue that's on our radar. I'm working with a CPA firm on it. Right now, that doesn't affect us in any of the stuff we do, either in the store or the collection of dues. Dues should be in there, although we look at that now because some states have different rules on that. But we always take a look at these laws and changes in laws to see if it would affect us in the future, and if so, what we would do to address that. But just one of those myriad things. When I said I was going to bore you with the details, that's a really good example of that. So, and then the web store, the online store, it's a monthly service fee. When I first started, which was about 5 years ago, it was a lot cheaper than it is now. I mean, it's not cost prohibitive, but at some point, if they keep raising it, we might have to look for another solution on it, just because they do keep raising it. And then, of course, this year Blue Star Sports implemented their own credit card processing system, so we're switching from the old one. So there'll be testing of that in the fall, though it's not expected there'll be any issues with that at all. So another project I did this year is the interactive team map. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on the website under the About Us page. You can go, and the idea is any prospects, kids that are in high school or going to graduate, kids looking for a place, they want to know about the ACHA. They can go to the website on About Us. There's this interactive map, and you can zoom in, you can zoom out. The different colored dots are different divisions, and it's filterable by division. There's buttons you can push and show, show me women's, show me all the women's teams, show me all the men's teams, show me men's Division I. That's what I'm interested in doing. And they all come up on there, and you can see where they are, and it's really interesting to take a look at, and you can see those things. Again, the idea is to give a resource for kids about where they might geographically want to be able to go play. So you can kind of see that very quickly in that. If your team's not on there, there's just a survey they have to fill out. It's a Survey Monkey. We'll send the link out again in the fall. You just have to fill out basically your team name, the mascot name, the rink address, and the contact information. Oh, and that is also a thing for if you have broadcasters streaming or social media can go on there too. You can access all that if I want to see, what's that one outside of Chicago? I want to go to school in Chicago. You can click on that thing, and it'll tell you where it is, where they play, where the rink is, what division they're in. And it's a pretty good resource by that. But that came up this year. It's a company that does that. It's actually a guy that works at a map company, and he has a sort of a side hobby of just making maps for people. So didn't know that there was still a cartography club these days, but apparently there is. So they're very helpful in helping us out with that. So the other thing that was new this year was, again, the Warrior Portal. This was a thing we brought up, and working with our Warrior rep, and Craig did a great job defining the product and coming up with price points that are helpful to teams in that. There are some good deals on there, and certainly if you're looking for equipment, that's that. But this is a website that's administered. Again, this is a like every other website today, this is all just a plug-and-play thing. You know, it's a template. You put in the text, you add a picture, and it makes it look like that, like I actually knew what I was doing. But it's really just the behind-the-scenes software that actually makes it look like that. But that's out there, and again, payments to that go directly into our deposit account at PNC from Square, and it comes in with different information, and we can track that back to the actual orders, because there's a monthly account rec at the end of the month. We have to square up with Warrior. We get, oh, here are the 15 orders that came in. Here's your cost. Here's our cost. You owe us X. We can check all that off, verify the shipping, and off goes the payment. So it's actually worked really well. It was not much administration on our part, but a lot of teams, especially the teams where they actually have a stick deal and they're picking up the player sticks, there's some really, really good deals available with that if teams are interested in looking at that. So, and Craig sends that out. I think it's squareup/shop/ACHA, I think. But Craig sends that link out pretty regularly, and I expect it before the fall too. So, Craig talked a little bit about the national tournament, and that's one of the areas we'll look at when we actually get to the financials on that. The national tournament, the strategy on that was to bring them under one roof, really to provide a better experience for the student athletes and to have better control over the resources, including the ice, the facilities, everything else. The example I always use in 2013 D2 national tournament, St. Louis University put the bid in, and of course the bids at that time were 2 years in advance. And they had their rink, it was beautiful, it was new, it was this, it was that. About 9 months before the event, they said, that rink's not available, we're going to move out to Chesterfield. And if you remember Chesterfield, Missouri, when we had the tournament there, I think it was already on the demolition list because they were building this giant mall next to it. And whether it was on the demolition list or not, they weren't really, you could tell they weren't really good about their maintenance. And it was in bad condition. You know, the rink, the ice wasn't great. You know, the Zam door had a crack in it about 18 inches, 6 feet off the ice. You remember that one. We played you there. You remember that one. The day of the national tournament, directly before the D2 national tournament, they had a sticks and pucks session and put cones out on the ice and had half a dozen kids skating around the cone. And if you were watching the video broadcast back then, which we still had, but it was one camera on a tripod just overlooking the ice, almost like a live barn camera, you could watch Paul Hebert and I walk around the ice with a bucket of slush. This is 20 minutes before the national championship game, repairing the ice because around the cones, the ice was cut in, 3/4 of an inch down in that half moon pattern you're familiar with. But we were out there patching the ice, and there was 20 minutes of video broadcast of us on the ice patching it with a bucket of slush. And it was things like that would happen. And there was nothing we could do. You'd go to the rink. Hey, you can't. No, that's scheduled. We're going to have that. We had no leverage in that. And the idea was to leverage our economic impact in this. And with 5 different events spread all over the country, it was, we were losing the economic impact of that, and we've demonstrated that over the last 3 years that we have a significant impact, and we have cities interested in hosting us now. We also have the muscle when we do this to have people from the rink. If you were there at D1 the first day, there was some problems with the dasher system. It broke. We had top-level guys from the STARS organization down there trying to fix it. They were calling in welders and trying to figure out what they were going to do to repair this thing. But they were very, very concerned about it, and they got it fixed at least relatively quickly. It was okay after the first day. But again, stuff goes wrong. When we have these tournaments, historically, stuff will always go wrong. It's just now we will have the wherewithal to get people to address it better in that. And the third thing was that when it was hosted by the teams, when there were separate events, we never really knew what the atmosphere would be like. And, I was fortunate to go to a number of national tournaments. Sometimes they were very well done, that the school hosting it would do very good with signage. It was a cool event. They had a nice atmosphere. Sometimes you would get there, and it was a rink. And there wasn't anything that said anything about the tournament, not a welcome to, not any sort of signage or anything nice. It was just like showing up at a rink and playing and going home. And so we weren't able to do that, and we're not able to do that level of support as an organization when it's in 5 different locations. And so the idea was bring it together on one site. We can leverage the staff, we can leverage the decoration, the signage, and it's really, I think it's worked out very well. If I was in Frisco, if you weren't able to go to Frisco, it was at the Dallas Stars practice rink, and you'd go in, you'd check in the lobby, you'd go up an escalator, and top of the escalator, you're on the concourse level looking out over the rink. And we had seat kills on 3 sides just to keep everybody on one side of the ice. And I mean, it was stunning. And you'd see parents get to the top of the escalator and just go, "Oh my God, I can't believe this. This is fantastic." And when you see the videos in that, watch for the graphics and watch for what we have. We get the ACHA logo in the ice, which is kind of cool. It was in the ice in Columbus. I saw actually some they showed on ESPN one day. They were showing the Columbus practice that the Blue Jackets were practicing last year, and during that you can see the ACHA logo in the ice during the broadcast. It's like, oh my God, there's our logo. This is kind of cool. So we actually are able to do stuff that we would never be able to do if they were still separate site locations, just because with the economic impact, we get the attention of the people in that. So with that, though, what we've always struggled with, though, there is greater expense in doing that. We're taking on the ice cost. We're taking on the decoration cost. And in the past, and we look at the financials, we'll see even in Columbus, we were losing money on that. And the idea was we've got to figure out how to be able to pay for this and certainly pay for it without just taking more money from the ACHA teams. And it's that thing about the left pocket, right pocket. Oh, you know what we can do? We'll raise ticket prices. Well, no, that's the same thing. That's the same pool of money. And so it's to find an external pool of money, either through sponsorships, through support, and then also what we've tapped into with Dallas, and this is one of the big key things going forward, is the different states have different incentive programs to bring events to their communities. And there's actually an organization that helps coordinate these things, and host cities can advertise. And that's what we found with Dallas. And the STARS organization was very good that the STARS organization went to. This one's called the Texas Trust. Their model is a cost reimbursement program, so there's certain allowable costs that you can submit to them for reimbursement, and they cover the cost with that. And we had a very, very good deal with them because they were very, very interested in us bringing in. Now we have, as Craig was talking about the ticket sales, now we have 2 different cities. We were over $160,000 in gate. And that's really important for us, too, because you do that once. You do that in Columbus. Oh, that's because it's Ohio. I mean, Ohio U was in there. They went. Miami was in it, Ohio. But doing it again in Dallas, a different town, and the gate was higher, now we can prove this. We can do this wherever we go. And so that opens more doors to us. And again, somebody was saying yesterday, it is baby steps, and we're heading down this path where we are now getting the attention of these communities that see like the economic impact we bring in, which, as Craig talked about, is millions and millions of dollars. And they say, wow, this is an organization we want to have come into our community. And that opens more doors. But again, the idea is to continue to build this out where it is less and less of our funds supporting it and more of external funds supporting it, and continue to change that cost thing. So I redid the way the financial statements go, and I actually 3, if you notice in your book, there's actually 3 different financial statements because it was really getting too quick to go through just one. So we can go through 3 today. I'm just kidding. One is 2 versions. What there are, you've got last year and this year. And when I say last year, I'm sure you understand the ACHA is on a fiscal year end. So our year end ends June 30th. So we've got 2 months left in this year. And then next year starts for the next season in that. And so the last complete year was 17-18. That's the last complete fiscal year we have. 18-19 is still open, and so that's the current year that we have there. And so what we've got is the 2 that don't say draft, and I can show what I did with these, and one we're not even going to look at, but I wanted you to see it just because it's the way they've always been presented. The one that starts with it says national tournament. It's the one that starts with I have both of them. It's the one that's the old. This was stuffed around. Let's see. This one here. Okay, it's the one, if you look, about 3/4 of the way down. I should have changed the name of it, but it says gross profit on there, the $1,106,000. That's the way that QuickBooks puts out these financial statements. That's the one that looks like this. The bottom number is $14,200. The bottom number listed on the page is $14,200. This I only gave you because it's the way QuickBooks always presented these. It's the way we've gone over it in the past. We're not even going to go over it this way because this is the one that we sit and we grind through it for 20 minutes talking about, that revenue goes with this, and that expense is this. And so what I did this year was took it and made the other one that doesn't say draft, the one that the bottom number is $1,067. And that one I took and grouped all the expenses and all the income by the program. And if you think about what we do as an organization, we run basically several programs. We run several large programs. We have a national tournament, regional tournament. We do have a select team for 2 divisions. There's an all-star challenge. We have this meeting here in Naples. And then administration of things like the website, answering questions, helping things out, doing registration, USA Hockey costs, things like that are all in there. And so this one is organized by that. And what I did was group on the first page, you can see here was, and again, this is the second year in Columbus. This is 17-18. This groups all the national tournament stuff together. So you can see up at the top, these were our income streams that we had in Columbus. And so you can see there was our admission was $151. Referee fees is USA Hockey still is kind enough to help us out with supporting the referee costs with that. So that's $40,000 come in. We had hotel rebates, and in Columbus we had some sponsor revenues that were good. Apparel sales was a new Aries vendor that is on for $18,500. $18,750 is a fixed fee. We did have some fines for a team that didn't stay in the host hotel, and then we sold programs down there. And so that was the total revenue that was associated with the national tournament the second year in Columbus. Right below that then now is all the expenses that are associated with that tournament in Columbus. And you can see all those things. I guess I don't have to explain them. The expense, the description should be pretty, it should indicate what it is. If you have a question about any of those, what is that? We can go over it, but I don't intend to grind through all those. And you can see down there the broadcast expense. And then Craig mentioned the broadcasting. It's really something we've struggled with for quite a while, and we've had some experience in broadcasting to a certain degree. One of the main things that we wanted to do was really increase the quality of the broadcast, and that was a plan that we implemented because it's a tremendous resource to the member teams, and it's a tremendous resource to the organization. There is now a library after last year and this year. There's a library of videos that are out there that if you were at the tournament, you can show your prospects, you can send to people, hey, can I see you play? And it demonstrates, even if you weren't there, it demonstrates the quality of play in this league. The broadcasting was fantastic, and having the instant replays where you can see the quality of goals, the saves, things like that were absolutely phenomenal. And it's a tremendous resource for us because that can be used in social media, that can be used in other media outlets and that. And it's a tremendous resource to the member teams as they can now demonstrate to people, yeah, this is what our league's all about. And I've actually seen this. I was in when Arizona State was in Nationals for D1 a few years ago. I was actually in the bar in Arizona for the reason. And Fox Sports Southwest had our video on. They were covering the final game. And it was like, this is fantastic. It was on in the bar, and, they're skating around. They showed the end of the game and that. It was fantastic. And it's really neat to see that, yeah, that's our league. That's the league that we play in, and be able to point to that and say that. And so if you look, our last year in Columbus, and again, as I mentioned, we lost $61,000, including what we had spent on broadcasting. The broadcasting then, the first year in Columbus, we paid a company $30,000, a professional company, a video production company, $30,000 flat. Maybe they thought it was too low because the lady that was there was very irritable. She wasn't cooperative. She was outright rude, quite frankly. The quality was sketchy. It didn't really work. When it did work, it wasn't good quality. It was always grainy. It was choppy, and we got this. The rink's Wi-Fi isn't right. They didn't set it up right. The rink's like, look, here's what you have. You have a dedicated line. You have dedicated Wi-Fi. It should be working. And it was just this back and forth. In the end of the day, we paid her $30,000 in expense. That's not this year. It's the year before this. And we had basically nothing of any quality to show for that. And that's when we started saying, does it make more sense to do it in-house? And so this is the first experiment at that. Now, this is not just the cost of it's some equipment cost, and it's also the cost of having broadcast staff brought down there. But still, when you look at that broadcast, this was literally hundreds and hundreds of hours of people that donated their times, technicians, camera people, interviewers. When you watch those interviewers, the ACHA Tonight Show, all those people were down there as volunteers. They do it for teams. I knew a lot of the guys from different teams that we played. But they all were giving their time for the ACHA for that. And so this isn't any labor cost. It's just the cost of the equipment and the support things required to do that. And so clearly that's what we were looking at with this was, that is not acceptable. This tournament can't cost that, and we can't fund it by raising ticket prices or taking more money from the teams. We have to figure out an external way to fund that, and that's what we'll see in a minute when we get to Dallas. So then you can go down, you can see then the regional tournaments for M2, M3 are in there. You can see the cost of that. The biggest cost there is the referee fees, which is not just their referee fees, but it's also their vision program, because apparently we were buying their glasses and things as well. So that's our I shot at the refs today. So and then select team is a cost. That was put in, and this is an interesting thing. We talked a lot about this yesterday, that, people are saying, why do we pay that? It's a lot of money for that. The select team was M2 and M3 put in. It was put in as an alternative for those divisions to the World University Games. That was voted in about 12 years ago. And, it's the thing about the ACHA with the amount of turnover we have. We talk about something that was voted on 12 years ago. It's like, it's like me and Marshall sitting talking about when they built the pyramids. People look and go, 12 years ago? There's not that many of us left that were here that long ago, and so people don't remember, well, here was the discussion, here was the thought in that. And so, what I told him was, if that isn't right for your division, if you don't think that's a value anymore, talk about it. That was voted in at the time, and actually at the time they voted a dues increase to fund it. And so it was thought it was a helpful program. It was a great program. I think it's a great program. It gives kids the experience to go overseas and play other people, meet other cultures, travel to Europe. The players in that case pay, I think last year was $2,100, but for that they get, a trip to play hockey. I think it's 6 or 7 games, in Europe, in Russia, wherever it goes. And the ACHA's contribution to that is about $50,000 a year, 50 to 55 grand a year. They now have, there's a process to make sure there's a variety of players from different teams. It's not just all the people from the coaches team. I think they took one player from each team, and it was limited at that. But, if you're in the D2, I know it's on the agenda for the D3 breakout. I don't know if it's on the D2 breakout, but certainly raise it. If you have objection to that, raise it. It was voted in by the members, and it can be changed by the members. It's not a thing that's not subject to change. So, there's also with that the All-Star Challenge. That's the one that's outside of Philadelphia. And that one, it's at the ice line, and they donate the ice, and so our costs there are all the referee fees, and then support, trainers, and then some of the staff travel to come in and oversee the thing. The showcase tournament, this was a one-time D2 event that would just happen last year, and is not repeated. It wasn't repeated this year, so that was just a one-time cost for that. And then the national meeting cost here, if you look, that runs is about $40,000 a year now. A lot of that is the banquet, and we took the banquet over as our own because it was felt that we needed to have something to be able to have a little more fun. And if you certainly saw the fantastic job that Taylor did last night, there's a lot of fun. We can celebrate our own culture and our own things, which we really can't do when we're in the room full of all the NCAA guys. I don't know if Taylor would have made the same jokes that she did if all the varsity coaches and all the NCAA guys were there, but maybe. But so we do have our own banquet now. We have that here. We can do our own Hall of Fame stuff, but there is a cost in that. And this hotel, believe it or not, is fairly pricey with food. And this room here, I think this projector's like $1,400 to rent it today. If you ever want to go into business, rent those projectors to rooms like that, because I get the bill and said, what did we buy it? Where is it now? But apparently it's a rental thing, and the screen, I think, is $400 to get the screen. So it's the cost of coming down here, it adds up. But it is a nice event. It's a great event. The banquet is fantastic. I had a fantastic time. It's neat to see everybody. It's neat to see people coming back that you haven't seen in a few years, and I think it's fantastic event like that. But that is a big portion of that cost that's in there too. The sales stuff's just at the bottom. That's the web store stuff, and the idea with the web store is just to recover the cost that we have with things. It's the score sheets are pretty much at cost, and recovering the shipping for those is the main thing. And the web store is it does automate the shipping. Somebody orders something, I can hit a button and it prints the label out and then throw it in the mail. Where if I had to retype the address, that would not go so well. And then the last page has what we call the general programs. And again, this is still 2 years ago. And you can see what everything there is. The membership dues are the dues that teams pay that come in. And then you can see the other sources of income we have, things like late fees, things like that. On the general expense side, and again, these are expenses that don't directly relate to one of those programs. And this is just the general stuff, things like the website, the stipends for commissioners, stipends for the helpers we have out there, the broadcasters, things like that. This year, the advertising and promotions, that was a little more. We actually had the opportunity to put a full-page ad in USA Today. They had a special program, And we had USA Hockey. We had grant money that we could use to promote that. It was used to promote the women's game, and so we had a lot of really positive feedback and a lot of communication from that, and that's where that was. The salary and wages, that's the 11,000, which is separate than the stipends. Stipends are the stipends that are paid to people on a technical level on a 1099. They're independent contractors, and so there is no withholding on that, and they're not employees. And currently we have no employees. I know I said Craig's an employee before. He's actually an independent contractor. The salary and wages category down there, that's the last of the Mike Wally salary. He was an employee. We did have withholding. We had state tax holding in that. That was the month prior to his termination, and the month following he had a month of severance pay, and so that's 2 months of his salary, which is why that's there, and it's a separate line than the stipends thing. So any questions on Columbus before we move on to Dallas? Yes, sir.
Columbus and Dallas, it's been a project for 3 years, correct, between Columbus and Dallas. What is our total profit or loss in those 3 years?
Oh, that's a good question. So the question was Columbus and Dallas. We've had 2 Columbus and 1 Dallas. And what's the total profit loss from those right now? And we'll get to that because I've got the Dallas numbers here. We probably are still negative in total, but we've turned the corner. And again, the numbers on here, again, if you look, I'd point out the one that says, we're looking now at the one that says draft. It's because I don't have the numbers all in yet. And these are estimates of that. And I was very conservative in these. And so the numbers will be subject to change. This year we paid for the tournament. We probably net are still underwater on the national tournament by probably 70 grand over the 3 years. But at these numbers, and I don't know where the revenue is going to come in. We don't have the the bill from the Stars yet. But again, the idea is as this goes forward, and we now figured out how to tap the state level revenue, and we also have the historical data to show that we have a consistent economic impact no matter where we go in the country, including a gate, which again, the gate drives hotels and everything else. It's all builds up into, they're not interested in the gate. The city, by the way, the reason the state does that is what they want is they want restaurants, shopping, rental cars, airport fees, all that is what they're interested in. And if we can show, hey, we brought 72 teams, each with 30 people and fans and parents to your community in a 2-week period. So that adds up to, we just brought 8,000 people into your community. They're all going to consume all these things. That's what they're interested in. And so that's a very good question, and we do monitor that, and I'll have better data on that in probably another month. Again, the accounting's not done on that, and the idea is to have this certainly break even. It will break even this year. It will turn a profit. The national tournament will turn a profit. It just is, it's keeping that going, which we will, because we know how to do it now. And, over time, that will go net positive over time. But it will take more than 1 year to do that. So it will take more to do it. But we do look at that, though, because, if we were net positive this year, that does make up for the last year's loss. I totally agree with that. So.
Could you share that number once you get it with the entire membership?
Sure.
So everybody knows.
Yeah, we can sure do that. We'll share that when that comes out. So because sorry, there's a fan right here, so I can't hear. So yeah, when that comes out, we'll have that as an update. Yeah.
The partnerships and the sponsorships that are listed in Craig's presentation, does that actually generate money, dollars, to the ACHA? If so, how much, and where is it shown in the plan?
Oh, that's a good question. The sponsorship money? Well, I don't know what his list was. I know the Warrior does. The Warrior deal is at the very top. If you look at the one that says draft.
I saw that one, but that's the only thing. I don't see anything from Howie's. I don't see anything in
Let's see. So, yeah. So how that's under. If you look at the second page under income sponsor revenues, Howie's is Howie's is $2,500 a year, but I put it as $2,000. I didn't know it went up, so I got to reissue a new bill for that. So that's the $36.46. Howie's is $2,000 a year. Barron's Rings is $500 a year plus a variable rebate on the rings that are purchased. So I don't have that data yet. They send us a check at the end of the year. I don't have it yet, but it's usually around $2,200 or so from Barron's. Again, because I think this year they said they got 4 out of the 5 divisions, and then that's a very low. When they signed up, I mean, they have a very limited market in terms of selling rings. They're selling championship rings, and so they're not market for sales with us isn't that great. They'd have at most 5 sets of rings for each one of the national champions. There's no guarantee that teams have to use that. For example, Liberty this year, Liberty University has their own ring vendor, and that's who they use. They don't use Barron's, and so there's.
I was just curious about what is a Hogan? I think it's a transportation.
Yes, it is. If you were in nationals, Hogan is a transportation company. They were a sponsor of the tournament down there, and so that's listed under the national tournament one. So that's under. So if you see their sponsor revenues, the $5,000 under national tournament revenue on the top of page 2, that's the Hogan transportation stuff. And so they cut us a check for $5,000. We had some videos that were they had some commercials that were broadcast during the tournament. And then they also had, they took their trucks and parked them outside the venues and put, a giant ACHA sign on the side of the truck, which was actually kind of cool. It really made it kind of neat when you pulled up. You could see it coming down the street. There was a semi with a ACHA sign on it.
I just didn't know how much dollar-wise that was given to the ACH
Yep.
and how much actually gets given to the person who gets it.
Given to the person who gets it?
Is there any finder's fee?
Oh, in these? No, there's not. These were not. Although, depending on what it is, that's something where I say like the it would depend on the arrangement. There's no finder's fees on any of these, no, and there's not a commission-based thing on any of this stuff. So it's just pure. That's just absolute pure money in. If somebody came up with, again, it was the my mom's the president of General Motors. We talked to them if they were interested in doing that or if they could make the connection. That's what I say too. And there's professional people that do that, but they do that for a finder's fee. But right now we don't have any relationship like that where there's a finder fee or commission paid on that. Yeah. Was there any other ones? I don't know if there's other. I don't remember what else he had listed. I think that's it. So, oh yeah, great.
Hey, Jim. Quick
Chris.
question. It's the NHL. I know we're partnering with NHL teams and trying to, with all the nationals. Do they provide any financial resources for us? Do they give money or donate any money to the tournament?
They don't directly, as I said. What the Stars did was the Texas Trust, in order to qualify for the Texas Trust funds, and I think that's similar in other states in that, you need to have a sponsor. And so you need to have, they don't evaluate on their own, an event to see if they would want to sponsor it or if they would want to provide revenue for that. And you need almost like a sponsor, which is either a sports commission or a thing. In our case, the Dallas Stars organization and the Dallas Sports Commission both went to the Texas Trust. We had a proposal that they then said, this is an event we want to bring in, and we're sponsoring them as an event for the Texas Trust application, which is what freed up the money from the Texas Trust. We don't receive direct funds from the Stars. That's something that Craig's working on for future events. There's the potential that they may do that. Certainly the Stars organization was much more supportive of us, and they gave us a lot more resources than in terms of ice personnel, technical issues, helpers around the rink and that, and staff than Columbus did. But that's something that's in the package is the definition of what do they do with that. But right now we don't get a block grant from an NHL team, for example. But I know Craig's got that in some of the proposals he's evaluating. It's certainly something we would look at in the future.
The reason why I ask is because I know there's facilities out there that might not be associated with any NHL team, but potentially getting free ice.
Yeah.
And I think we need to look at that because cost is the biggest thing in everybody's mind right now.
Yeah.
I mean, to go to a tournament and pay $20,000 for one game is a lot.
Right.
In an area that's not geographically located to any of the teams, pretty much.
Right.
So why are we thinking about geographic? I said this
Well-
last year. I say it again this year. It needs to be a map. The teams that regularly go, we know who they are. Put a dot in the middle of the map, how far it is to drive.
Right.
And let most teams drive versus have to fly.
Right. Did you only play one game this year?
One game,
Oh.
20 grand.
Well, that's on you, though, Chris. So
Yeah.
the location, maybe not, but, the location maybe you can't do anything about. But, again, if you look at the map, and this goes back to what I started off with saying, is that there's teams all over the country. And, we should have some of the guys from the West come up and say that they could come up and say that, why should we always go out east? And I know when you say free ice, and I'm sure you're talking about the ice line, but that's one of the facilities. We look at that, and we have events there still. But the ice line we had a D2 tournament there. For D1, the ice line may be fine, and it works there because there's only one game going on at once, and there's enough room in there that teams can get in and out of there. When D2 had the ice line there, and D2 had 3 and 4 games going on at once, and those little hallways going back to the locker rooms were absolutely impassable back there because there were 3 and 4 kids getting dressed out there with their bags because the locker rooms were so small, and then massage tables, skate sharpeners, everything else. You could not go by there with a hockey bag where that was. It was, quite frankly, it was an absolute disaster to have that there. And so, again, as I said, it's an association, and we look for something that's applicable and appropriate for all the teams together. And that's one of the things that Craig spends time looking at. We don't blow that off, and we don't just say, who's got the biggest dump truck full of money, that's where we're going to go. We consider all these things in the decision-making process, and we evaluate all those things. And certainly I understand that.
Dallas makes sense. You said something. How does Dallas make sense?
We-
It's in the middle of it. It's not even near geographically. It makes no sense.
There's a lot.
Standing up there trying to say that we walked through this logic.
Yeah.
Dallas is in an area that I don't know how many. I did the shit last year. There was like 5 teams that did drive-throughs. It was less than 13 hours.
Right.
Everybody else is above 13 hours to get there. So how is that logical?
Well, I mean, that's one of the considerations is we do have teams down there. There's a number of D2 teams down there. D1 has teams that are within not that far. But what you're saying is that every team west of the Mississippi should drive out to Philadelphia every year. Is that? I mean, that's not fair either. When we had, and again, I'll get into the detail, but I'm not going to argue about logistics. You can talk to Craig about site selection, any ideas you have. But D2, when D2 used to have the national tournament, D2 has 4 regions around the country, geographic, and it rotated every year. It was every 4th year. It would be Northeast, Central, West, Southeast, and there was a different host there. And we would go from San Jose one year to Florida Gulf Coast right down here. It'd be in Grand Rapids area the next year. It always moved around in that. And I know D1 didn't typically do that, and we do consider those things. We look at how far things are, and as Craig in his presentation made, we're considering that in the other sites that are available out there. And so, we do consider that, but to have something that's appropriate, it's more than just one team here, one team there. So yes, sir.
If you roll the clock back to when we weren't under one roof, and you address just the financial side of Nationals, when everything was separate, can you tell us the difference between the profit loss over the last 3 years compared to profit loss over pick any year?
Oh, yeah.
5 years ago.
Oh, sure. That's real easy because the question is so if you look at the way when we used to have separate tournaments, how does that compare to the profit and loss that we have today from a financial perspective? It's a completely different model. When they were separate tournaments, and it's different by division. D1 was an ACHA event. They ran it really as an ACHA event. It was in one of those 3 cities because they had a relationship there. We would pick up costs with that, but they would keep the gate. But the other divisions, the way D2, the women's divisions, D2, D3 would work was a host team or a city could apply and put a proposal in to host the event. It was their event, and the ACHA really sent a couple people to be advisors. We would send a ref supervisor, and we would send, the commissioner would go to make sure everything was going on with that. But the execution of that event was all on that host team. And the host team...
I think you misunderstood my question. If you look at the cumulative effect on the ACHA profit and loss
Yeah.
for having host teams do events specific to the division and compare it to the cumulative effect profit loss as addressed by Rich's question over the last 3 years, where do we stand cumulatively?
Oh, well, no, again, this is what I'm saying is when those events were hosted by the host teams, they weren't our event. So we didn't pay the ice. We would have some travel costs to send those couple people out there, but the host team would pick up the ice. The host team, whoever had the bid, would pay the gate. They would pay the refs. And we might have paid the refs and got reimbursed, but there was really very little cost of hosting those tournaments to us. So prior years, we were to roll back the financials and look at that. The whole national tournament probably cost, the ACHA was a very minor event because they weren't our events. We were just sending a couple of advisors there and we'd clear the ref fee. What we did was we turned that from a distributed, hosted by these teams that put that out there. But that's at the risk of quality control, though. We had no control over the quality. We would get there, they would have the ice book, they would have everything scheduled. We weren't in charge of that. We were just advising them on that, and that's where the variability in the delivery came from, was we had no idea what they were going to spend on decoration or anything else. And we found in a lot of cases it was outright misrepresented when we put the bid in. That, oh, we're going to have this, we're going to have that. I remember one team in the Central was going to have, carnival tents and a little area to eat out there. And I never did get my iPod. This is aging it, but we were all supposed to get iPods in a guest bag, and it was all this stuff like that. And then when you get there was a lot of under delivery on it. And again, that was why the decision was made to bring it together. But it's not even comparable. The ones before it probably cost us, I'd have to go back and look, it was probably like 30, 40 grand was the net cost to us, and we had none of the revenue in it, because any revenue was retained by the host team. If they were able to market it and sell tickets and get in good gate, they could recover their cost, and they would keep any of the profits that they generated from that. And so
They would lose $20,000 a year. You take the same $20,000 and subsidize the individual divisional championships to improve the experience. If you've got complaints over the experience, I don't know if the group all agrees that the experience was so terrible on a divisional level.
well, which division are you in? And 3? Well, from 2, I would say it was. The 2, I went to some terrible tournaments, quite frankly. There were some that were just, they were not like going to anything that was anything of an event. But again, the debate over whether or not we should have a unified tournament location or have 5 separate ones is a little out of scope for the financial stuff, although there is a financial impact in it, and I understand that. But again, the idea is to find a way to fund it where it is not going to be a cost to us. It should be, and the plan is to make this a great revenue positive thing on that. And if you look on here, and as Rich was bringing up, there wasn't a lot of sponsorships, and that's a real opportunity we have to get event sponsors in that. It's finding the right people there and getting ahead of that curve in that. And next year in Dallas, and certainly the next places we put a bid in, the idea is to really commoditize that thing. And it is building that, but it will now be revenue positive going forward. So that's the idea with that. But if the question is, should we go back to the separate sites and have 5 separate sites in that, which is something certainly if the membership thinks they're well served by that. But again, the reasons, if I go back to the reasons that we started this, that's why we did it, was to have better control. But individually, you wouldn't have the signage, you would not have the video capabilities we do now, because we can't do that in 5 different cities. It's just not possible for us to do that. And certainly, if we don't have control over the venues, it wouldn't be possible to do that. We would be rolling the clock back in the tournament by 5 years. So, but certainly that's open to debate. If you have thoughts about that, please talk to Craig, or Craig's really the one looking at that. So, but again, we're always looking for input on things. So certainly bring that up if that is. So anyway, back to the financials. We haven't been through our this year one, and again, this is absolutely a draft. And again, it's organized the same way, although I can see when I sorted it, they're in sort of a different order in that. But if you look at the bottom of the first page, that's where the national tournament comes in. And so Texas Trust is at $214,000. That's the amount of expense reimbursement that we've been approved for. And so that's money that comes in. We also, under that contract, we're able to keep the gate, so the gate comes in. And by the way, these are all other than the $5,000 and the $40,000, the referee fees and the hotel fines. The bottom 3 are actuals. The other ones are estimates. The other ones are what we've been told, but I've not got the actual reconciliation. Those are subject to change. This is again a draft. This year we're looking at is still open another 2 years. Although it should not be lower than this. It probably would be higher than this, but that's conservative. So. That's our total tournament income, and then below that is the tournament expenses. Those are actual, and as far as I know, right now those are all in, and so those are all in, not subject to change. And so right now we're break even plus on the national tournament of about $6,500, and that may go higher depending on when the revenue streams come in. We'll see where that goes. But again, we've now shown that we can actually at least break even and then have the great opportunity to commoditize this in the future and bring that in. And you can see that the expense categories and things like that, they're pretty obvious. But does anybody have any questions on any of the current year Dallas National Tournament stuff. So going back to the front then, the other programs we do, you can see there's the select team. So the select team was net to the ACHA $45,000. Up top, you can see that the students paid on their own $50,000 for that. The Warrior Stick deal is way at the top. That's our net commission on that. Again, there's not a cut on that. The All-Star Challenge was $18,000 as a program this year was the cost. That was higher than last year. The All-Star event that was higher because of it was increased ref costs, and then also local transportation. They got some buses to take some kids to the airport and bring the players in, and so that one went up. And again, whenever there's a discrepancy from one year to another or an expense that's not expected, we go back and look at the reasons for that and see if that's something we should consider in the future or have another way of paying for those things. Again, regional tournaments, those are about the same every year. The main cost there is the referees, there's not any reimbursement on that, so we do pay for those as well. And then the last one under the national tournament then is the national meeting expense. That's the Naples expense here. So that's just the meetings, the rooms, the banquets, things like that. Sales there, and then below that then is the non-program specific income, the admin income, which again there's our membership dues, late fees. One thing that's new on there is the application fee, $13,200 is a new thing. Again, one of the things that we've tried to do is when someone applies, when a team applies, believe it or not, there's a whole process to go through and, set them up, evaluate. They have to submit like organization documents, how are they going to be organized? What do they have? Especially for the higher levels, there's a lot of work that goes into evaluating, do we want to have them as a team? And then also, where should they play and what division should they play? And so the idea was put that application fee, which helps offset the cost that we incur in evaluating the bid. And so if you take 13,200 divided by 300, that's the number of teams we had apply. And so it's been really a positive for deferring a lot of the costs we have in. And again, that defers the stipend costs because we're giving stipends and pay people to grind through all those documents when they come in. And so again, it's trying to match and develop a revenue stream that matches the cost incurrence of those things. So. And then operational programs down below. Again, there's our USA Hockey fees. USA Hockey, just again, we get team dues of $700, and that's a significant discount over what you'd have to pay if your players registered on their own. That includes up to 30 players and 40 coaches. And as Craig was saying now, a real value in that now is, that's a path to compliance with the new Safe Sport law. And again, as Craig mentioned, that's a federal law now. And if you're not part of an organization that gives you a path to do that, you'd have to invent that on your own. And so, it's fortunate that we're in an organization that has a path to compliance with that, and that's included in that rate. And so that's where that goes. AHCA, that's a D1 expense. That's for the D1 memberships. That's $11,000. The contract services is the accounting fees, and then the legal fees. Believe it or not, it's not something that comes up a lot, but we do have a lot of even legal issues with some of the appeals, and we get served every now and then where somebody thinks their ultimate appeal is their appeal's denied. They can still sue us, and that's happened. And we have Stu Grimson is very good at helping convince them to see what they should be thinking about, and he does a really good job with us and that. So and then outside services, the $12,000 is the PR. That's the PR contract with a company called Angles. If you met Tobin. I don't think Tobin's here today, but he was certainly down in Dallas with us. So, and then the rest of the operation stuff down there, you can see the stipends amounts, and then the ACHA staff travel that's just the generic, the $18,000. That's the generic. Craig goes to a showcase or something that's not one of our events. He goes to something that is showing, talking about the ACHA. Any of the travel that's not for one of those events then would be in that travel category. And so again, that's something when it comes in, we look at all the time too. So anyway, that's the draft of the financials for this year. Again, as far as I know, there's not any expenses that I've not gotten yet, although a lot of times I'll get a late invoice in, but there should not be any material changes to that. And on the revenue side, it's just waiting to get the last of the reconciliations in from the STARS organization and that on the gates, and then how much of the cost offset that is, and then we'll have a better picture of that. And certainly, Rich, I'll send that out when I get it. And then next year it'll be the final one, it rolls backwards like that. But does anyone have any question about the financials, this, anything else? Oh, wow, look at hands going up. Yes, sir. Sure.
Like, we also see the list of, not the people, but the positions that receive stipends. Because,
Yeah.
we spent $85,000, you said all those guys were volunteers for the video down there, and then in another statement you said there was stipends for the video guys. So we don't really, we just like to see a list of what positions and what those stipends are. I know some of our commissioners were buried with work this year, and their stipends were just so low and ridiculous.
Oh, no, I agree.
I'd like to see that list.
Yeah.
I know that there's at least 20 teams that have said that to me.
Yeah, I can bring a list, and you can see the names. I mean, that's public record, so.
I put in a request last year for a bunch of stuff financials through Chris Berry, and I did not get any of it. And I put it in more than once.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can sure do that. Yeah, we can sure do that. How many do we on time? Good? Huh? Oh, that's okay. Okay, there's another hand in it back. Yes, sir. Yeah, we do, because I do keep the P&L by class. It's in QuickBooks. It's called by class, but it's by division. National tournament's a bad example for that, though, because most of the national tournament costs are not incurred on behalf of a division or another. If you think of the national tournament, the way that goes, and in the current structure, the national tournament, I record the ice cost by class, so I can see based on the time and the sheet, wherever it is, I can allocate that by class, and that goes in there. I can allocate the refs by class, and that goes in there. The refs are reimbursed by USA Hockey, so that's a cost neutral item. There's a little bit of overhang there where we pay for it, but not that much. The cost of the hotels for the support staff, I might be able to see that. Oh, that was Jay Peacock there, so that's a D2 expense. Jay Peacock's travel expenses, that goes in D2. But the bulk of what we spend money on, when you look at the cost categories down there, if you look at the bulk of what goes in down there, broadcast expense, the decoration costs. Decorations are for a rink, not a division, and so those are a general cost that would have to be allocated by a number of team or something. And so when you look, if you run the national tournament by class, there's very little costs that are traceable in the national tournament to a division or another. The bulk of the costs there are the administration of the tournament in general, like decorations, like admin travel, like broadcast, like security costs, things like that. They're not assignable to a specific division, but certainly on some of the other programs, that is by cost. If you look here, and you can really see it on even some of this stuff here. If you look, the select team is there's a D2, it's a D3 event. It's usually about that same amount depending on where they go. It usually is net cost the ACHA of about $50,000. It just is D2, D3, and it rotates by year. So D3 was this year, D2 was last year. Year before that was, it just rotates. So, but yeah, I have that as a report. I can certainly send that to you too. So, and the big thing in that is that category of if you look at the very bottom of that, the category of the general, the total operations, the $265,000. That is then allocated by just team count, and actually that was provided to the Delaware guys for the last 5 years, I think, by class, and they did some further analysis on that. But and so that overhead is allocated just based on number of teams. It's that divided by number of teams, and each division gets allocated that overhead based on number of teams times whatever that rate is. I think last year was like $360 or something for the overhead. Just because those costs aren't allocable by division. If something I can track it to a division, it was incurred for a division expense, that's where it goes. If not, it goes in an admin. So, but we can send that out. Any other questions? Is there anything I missed? Anything? Anything? Okay, I'll turn it back over. So.
Thanks, Jimmy. Ashley, you ready? So Ashley's going to talk about the new federal law that's coming that we're going to have to deal with, and then Mo will follow them up with how we're going to respond and deal with it. So Ashley Bevan.
Morning, everybody. My name is Ashley Bevan. I'm the Senior Director for the Adult Hockey Program at USA Hockey. I think I know most of you, a lot of familiar faces. So this morning, my role here is to explain as much as possible and what really is a new federal law that was signed in February of 2018 called the Sexual Abuse and Safe Sport Act. And so how that affects both national governing bodies as well as non-national governing bodies, because it applies to both. Local teams, camps, schools, churches, anyone that plays athletics in this country. With that, I'll begin. This started out, just so you know, as an hour-and-a-half presentation, brought down to a 30-minute presentation. So I'm going to get through it in the most efficient way as possible. This is for the 1920 season, so this coming season. So some of the events that have taken place that have caused these changes, as you can see, back in 2010, 2011, safe sport programs began to develop. The Sandusky incident occurred in November of 2011. USA Hockey began its safe sport development in 2012. There's progression in there all the way up to the latest Nassar gymnastics incident in 2016. The Center for Safe Sport opened in March of 2017. And this is really just to give you a background in what's leading up to what's coming here next season. Congressional investigations taking place, lots of hearings, as most of you know, and then here's the actual name of the law. Authorization Act in 2017, actually, like I said, signed in February of 2018. USOC reforms and oversight of NGBs begin. The Ropes and Gray report in December of 2018. House Energy and Committee or Commerce Committee report in December of 2018. And then the federal law began shortly after that. So the U.S. Olympic Committee is imposing additional requirements upon all NGBs, and as I stated at the beginning, non-NGB sports will abide by this too, be required to, per law. And essentially, we're taking these additional requirements in order to continue our position within the sport of hockey, as well as to properly oversee the programs and safety of all of our members. Some of the changes that are required, not optional but required, are abuse prevention policies for minors, code requirements, which is more about terminology. Obviously, the safe sport actual training that has developed over time as you guys have taken that, along with different refresher courses, and it's evolved over time, essentially. Background screening. Some of the new changes are this banned list, which is, for instance, if you go online to safesport.org, you can do a search right now and find out those that have been banned for different misconduct items. So that will be made public. It is today. Reporting of all cases, period, all. Affiliate and local program sanctioning requirements, agreements. So making sure that programs understand exactly what they're supposed to do and required to do now. And then obviously the auditing for that compliance. So this is the Minor Athlete Abuse Prevention Policies Code. This may or may not apply to the ACHA, but definitely is a best practice. And the reason it may or may not apply is it depends on where the ACHA ends up with regard to 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds on teams. Right now, I know the ACHA is allowed to have 17-year-olds on college hockey teams. So that being the case, the law, just to expand a little bit on that, the law requires If you've got a 17-year-old on your team, everyone on that team that's 18 years or older must go through the Safe Sport process. This is, remember, just keep in mind as I'm speaking that, and you're reading, this is not USA Hockey, this is federal law. We're just implementing. One of the new ones Casey asked me to make sure I talk about is the new policies, one-on-one interactions and massage and rub downs. That applies kind of to the athletic trainers. And essentially, they call it open and accessible rooms. So for instance, you couldn't go as an athletic trainer and get a massage for a player in a closed room that's inaccessible, if that makes sense. So some of the Safe Sport training items, it'll be an annual requirement. They're redoing the initial training. It's a 90-minute training. And then they'll add refresher courses after that, but it will be an annual thing that's required to be completed. As I mentioned before, with regard to 18-year-olds versus 17-year-olds, obviously we know that volunteers that have regular and routine access to minors have to go through the process. That has not changed. And then obviously the posting of trained coaches. So just like the band list, as I understand it, there'll be a list of those that have been properly trained. So you can see those that have had hits and those that are within the system and good and have their background screen complete, their Safe Sport training complete, as well as have the proper CEP certification. So new USOC background screening, basically everyone's going to a single screening company for all NGBs right now. The ACHA uses NCIS. It's the same one that USA Hockey uses, so that's the one that will be moving forward. These screens will be enhanced and include additional databases that may not have been included in the past. Don't get me wrong, the background screen that took place was extremely in-depth, but there is further that they can go. So that'll take place. There'll be a minimum screening criteria, which will be handled by the screening company. The approved provider screening costs have been set at $30, which is an absolute bargain. It will be built into the USA Hockey registration. So for instance, that's something that has to be complete in order to get an approved roster. Can't move forward without it, the screening and Safe Sport training. Unclaimed coaches and volunteers, they'll have to follow the same process. If you register as a free volunteer manager, for instance, outside of your 4 coaches that the ACHA is allowed, you'd have to go through the same exact process. The Center for Safe Sport will review all hits involving sexual misconduct. That's currently the case now as well. So the screening right now is good for every other year, but we understand that some of the items here, while I'm discussing them and you see them, they are subject to change. And my estimation, we understand that that could be an every other year thing. Or excuse me, every year thing. It hasn't changed at this moment, but it could. Yes? So the screening is pretty in-depth. If I had to guess, the answer would probably be yes. Warrants are a hit. Misconduct's a hit. Harassment's a hit. There's lots of things that fall under that category. So yes would be the answer there. Some other required changes, the band list, which we've already talked about a little bit, but we'll adjust our bylaws at USA Hockey as well. They're reporting to USA Hockey, by USA Hockey to the Center for Safe Sport. The required reporting from affiliates. I know a lot of you do coaching outside of the ACHA as well, so a lot of that applies. The agreements we've talked about. The auditing we've talked about, and the training we've talked about. As this takes place, we'll continue to train our affiliates and local programs, and that includes the ACHA. As much information as we have, we will continue to pass it on in the format of training. So kind of the last slide here. I hope I didn't go too fast, but I will be around for questions after, during, before, what have you. I'll be around most of the day today. But next steps for USA Hockey and for all NGBs is to change up the Safe Sport Handbook. That's being modified as we speak. Safe Sport training becomes annual this season. The reporting is immediate. That's a good note. Obviously, agreements will be sending those out. And then the 18 and over player training to begin in the 2019-2000 season, which is this coming season. So it's an important piece. And so these are some of the next steps USA Hockey will be going through as we continue this process to comply with federal law. Both. The requirement by law is both.
It's 17, it's under 18, right?
Yes, for under 18, yes. Yes. Does it also apply to league level volunteers, the treasurer, secretary, whoever? If you're coaching, the answer is yes. If you're volunteering, the answer is yes. I'm not sure. I might need to ask you for a little more detail on the question. My understanding is yes. If you are a volunteer on a board, just like it currently exists today, you will have to go through the Safe Sport process, correct? NGB is the acronym for National Governing Body. So there's many of them on the winter and summer side of sports. USA Hockey obviously being one of them. Cycling is another for the summer games. So on down the line, snowboarding, skiing, on the winter side anyway. And track and field, for instance, on the summer side, things of that nature. Yes?
So if we had a 17-year-old in like what we would call our tryouts or training camp, before we started that, would everybody have to be completed this?
Yes.
Okay, so before you start training camp, before there's any contact whatsoever?
Yes.
it's gotta be done.
Yep, that's correct.
What if you have a 17-year-old show up on the first day, you can't go?
Correct.
They didn't have,
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I don't know if you can register for the ACHA that far in advance. But if there's a 17-year-old that's involved with 18-year-olds on or off the ice in team activities, the answer would be yes. Yes. Repeat that, please. I'm sorry.
is there the ability to use a second locker room when they're not sharing a locker room?
I think the question was if the ability is to separate a 17-year-old from an 18 per locker rooms, is that acceptable? And the answer is no. So, yes. So that's a little bit confusing. He said he never is involved with the team, but he helps run the team. So that seems to me.
He doesn't interact with the team at all, but he helps manage the team. There was a question asked over here, like a board member or something like that.
Yeah,
they don't
you know
interact
what?
direct-
I would say let's talk a little bit more about that because that seems to be a little bit confusing to me because I feel like that was one and the same. Yeah, if you're interacting with the players, the answer is yes. You will have to go through the Safe Sport process. You said there was another question over here somewhere? So, again, the new federal law in effect for this coming season. Yes.
If this is going to happen, is there any way that the ACHA registration can be expedited to like tomorrow so that teams can be prepared to do this?
So great question. I must commend Mo and Craig for all the work that they've done since this past January, as this became notified to USA Hockey and all the other NGBs that exist. And so we have been working diligently as quickly as possible to adjust to comply, because non-compliance is not an option. And so with that being said, Mo and I have worked hard along with Craig to become compliant in the best and most efficient way as possible and as quickly as possible. And I think Mo will be able to answer some of those questions with regard to when that's going to take place and how. Yes.
We hire athletic trainers to come to our games. If they have some type of training that they engage in with their company, that their company can provide documentation, can that be used in lieu of the USA Hockey Safe Sport, or do all of our trainers have to get this training as well?
So the answer would be no. And yeah, it's not the USA Hockey Safe Sport now. It's the federal law that's requiring us to go through the Center for Safe Sport to make that happen. So yeah, your volunteers that have regular routine access to minors will have to go through this process. You know, you still got your 4 coaches. They have to go through it per roster. Yes, there was a hand.
Ashley,
Yes.
in the back here.
Yes.
So if your school requires you to go through a bunch of training modules, such as the Cleary Act, or as an example, how does that work in conjunction with Safe Sport? Is that 2 totally separate things from a federal law?
Totally separate. Yes.
Totally separate.
Totally separate.
So even if we're going through all those training modules, wow. Okay.
Correct. Yep. Yes. No. Did everyone hear that?
Repeat it, please.
So the question was, say a team has all 18-year-olds and they're all good to go. They've done the process, and team over here has one 17-year-old and they've all gone through the process. So because of the fact they're playing each other, does the other team have to do Safe Sport? The answer is no. I'm not great at explaining the logic, so I'd have to get back to you on that question. I didn't make the law. Yes. Right. So all tournaments, it's pretty specific. All tournaments, leagues, teams. It says schools, churches. It actually lists facilities, which I'm not going to get into because the ACHA does not run a facility that I'm aware of. Right. Yep. Okay. So, but yes, the answer to the question is yes. Showcases would be included in that. Yes. That would be, I think that's a great idea. Yes, all over 18. That'd be a great idea. Yep. Yes. How about I'll take one more, and then is that okay, Mo? And okay. Yes. You just said it right there. Regular and routine access. Yes. I have not seen percentages attached to anything with, I don't know if I'd agree with that, but regular and routine access is the common nomenclature that's been associated with Safe Sport, yes. I don't know if I'd put a percentage on it, though. Very last one for right now. So I think with regard to how that interacts with Safe Sport, if you've got those minors with the non-minors, I think the answer is crystal clear. I'm not, yeah, Safe Sport does not address whether they are in high school or not in high school. The federal law is not about registration. The federal law is about protection of the athletes from those that are, over the age of 18, and that includes coaches in the positions of power. Very last one. Ed, very last one.
Would it then be something that could be out of, something we don't have to necessarily worry about if USA Hockey was able to, once a member that turned 18, once they turned 18, that they got an email saying, okay, you have 30 days to complete your safe sport. That way it would be taken care of. All the girls and boys that were playing hockey, once they turned 18, they got an email shot out to you with your happy birthday email that you get every year and say, hey, now you have to complete safe sport. You have 30 days to do it. Otherwise, is that something that we can do? Because then that would take care of the worry that they have with their, all those 18-year-olds that are intermingling with the 17-year-olds should be safe sport trained in that sense.
It's an interesting thought. Yep. Thank you.
So it's going to be my turn here in a second. Let me just, so I coached at Penn State, so I want everybody to understand what's going on here, why he's giving you those answers and everything, right? Because the bottom line is, when things happened at Penn State, all of our rules changed overnight. Every rule changed overnight. We had to shut down facilities to the public overnight. People who had been able to come and play racquetball in Rec Hall for 60 years, 50 years, however old the building is, suddenly couldn't enter the building anymore. Okay? They changed the rules all the time without thinking of the implications of the rule. This is happening here too, okay? Just so everybody understands. The rules have to change. They have to change, and we have to comply with them, which means some things that we do can't be done anymore. It's just that simple. And until those rules might be revisited or something happens that it gets back to where we can do that again, then we can do it again. But I will tell you, I've been through this. I lived through it. Immediately, everything, the way we did things completely changed. And that's what's going to happen for a little bit, and I think we're going to have to figure out how to get through it. The first part of this is we've been working with USA Hockey to change our registration process. Can I get back to you in a minute? So we've been working with USA Hockey to change our registration process. What we are trying to do is make it so, and we're trying to get this done as quickly as possible. We've green-lighted it. We're trying to get it done so that it'll be ready for testing in July. But what we want to do is we want to do all our registrations through USA Hockey, because USA Hockey actually has the capacity to make sure that everybody has done everything they need to do before they can get on a roster. So for those of you that have done anything in youth hockey, this type of registration is probably going to be more familiar to you, because it's going to be very similar to that youth hockey registration where you can register, but you can't get claimed to your team until you've completed all your requirements, and that's what's going to happen. Okay, this flow chart, I'm not going to, we have some votes that we have to do. You guys have to be able to do your business today. So I'm not going to go through this too in depth, but I'm just going to touch on a couple things so you understand how it's going to work. And then, because we still have a contract with Point Streak, and Point Streak is still our scoring system, all of your rosters, once you submit them, you've claimed everybody and you've submitted them, they're going to come to me, and I'm going to have to port them all up to Point Streak. But it's the only way we can think to do this right now, so that we can make sure you're all compliant and that we're compliant. Okay? Their folks, I spent a day out in Colorado Springs, and we sort of whiteboarded this across a
apparently they don't care about the paint on their walls. They just write right on their walls. So, but we were able to do that. So it'll be the same. You're gonna have a team administrator who's actually gonna register your team. You'll either get an invoice if that's what you need, or you'll be able to pay online. Once your team is registered, it'll sort of be the old model we had like 2 or 3 years ago, where you get a special link for your team. You'll send it out to your team, your players, your coaches. We'll still have the 30-player, 4-coach limit. However, the trainers, is it trainers and managers, or those volunteers are, you don't have to pay extra for them. And then once all of those folks get their link, the team admin will have a template for the form that will have all the things that are required for me to send up to Point Streak, so it matches. But I think we're also going to make it so you can customize that a little bit, so you could add some additional fields for yourselves. Once that's all done, that your players, coach, and staff can go in and register, and you'll be able to see that data up here. Once you have your team completely claimed, after they've registered and you've claimed them, if there are still people who haven't done their clearances and stuff, you'll be able to send me a supplemental roster later that I can push up for you. Might only have one person on it, but once that person clears, you can send it on. So you can get started with all the people that are cleared, and we can send that roster up for you. Later on, we can check that. We'll also have an executive dashboard where we can see everybody's teams. We can confirm everything if we have questions about stuff. We'll also hopefully be able to build in a communication component to this, so that the lousy way we communicate now will be upgraded, hopefully, and we'll be able to get you information right out of this system so that we can send it to you. There's some other things that we're working on for the future on this. USA Hockey is not charging us a dime for this, just so you know, and they're not raising our dues. They actually are trying to help us comply with this, and they're actually, their estimate is that this is going to be about a $20,000 project for them, and they're just going to cover it. Okay, this is real important. I just want you guys need to understand. We were at less than 50% compliance last year. We had less than 50% of our coaches and our staff that needed to have safe sport and background checks. Less than 50%. Technically, I mean, half of the people that were coaches should not have been working with their teams by law. So we need to fix this, and this is the easiest way that we think we can fix it, so that, because as we only have we don't have our staff is not huge, and to go through and actually try to do this compliance by hand with everybody, we would not have it done in time for you to start the season. And so this is our game plan moving forward. I think we have a good plan. Their folks are sharp. I do a little bit of programming and stuff. These guys are nuts. They're way better than the folks that I talk to on the phone at Point Streak all the time. So I think it's going to be the right way to go, but it's our best bet for this. You want to? So new things happening. One is a unique ID number from USA Hockey that's yours for life. So in other words, every time, right now, I'm pretty sure it used to be that when you registered, you got, am I right? So from now, and the line that they use that I love is, at 8 years old, you're going to get a USA Hockey number, and that number is going to stay with you for the rest of your life. Okay? So we will have a unique identifier, and that unique identifier should be attached to your safe sport clearances and your background clearance. So no matter what program you're dealing with, you'll be able to use that lifetime number, and it'll say that, yeah, you've already done all this.
So I'm saying registration is happening for travel teams now for 1920.
We'll be able to suck your info in using your unique number. That should it'll all be tied together from here on out. The problem that we had, just so you understand how we got our stuff to USA Hockey, is that when everybody would register, every week, Brian, or every couple days, Brian would have to download all of that information from Point Streak and send it off to USA Hockey. They would put it into their system as quickly as possible. But the reason you couldn't get your USA Hockey number the minute you registered with us is because it wasn't porting over to USA Hockey automatically. So, and Point Streak and USA Hockey are not going to play nice together. I'm just telling you, they're not. Believe me, I've been trying for several months. It's not going to happen. So that's why we're actually going to take everything and then just move it up ourselves. So, we have elections and proposals that we have to do. Some of you may have gotten a report from me in your folder. Some of you may not have gotten one. I'm going to put it up online because we thought we printed enough, but the printers, they printed 400 of Jimmy's thing and only like 50 of mine because, I don't know, Jimmy's more important. But if you have any questions after you read through that, I'll be over at the hotel tonight, and I'll be around today. And if you have any questions after you read that, there's really mostly it's points of emphasis stuff and things like that. But yeah. One more time for Ashley, and then we're gonna. I think we have to get moving into.
Yeah, I apologize. It's not my nature to grab the microphone, but I just want to make one point of clarification. The gentleman had the question about the showcase. Raise your hand real. There you go. Thank you. So just to clarify, I don't think the question came to me properly, so I didn't know if you were talking about within the USA Hockey ACHA system about the showcase or outside of that system. So if you're conducting a showcase camp clinic that has nothing to do with the ACHA and nothing to do with your USA Hockey roster for your team, you're outside of that purview, you're literally on your own. So theoretically, if something happens and there's some sort of issue that takes place, whether it's abuse or what have you in any form, that's on you. Now, whether federal law applies, that's outside of USA Hockey and ACHA. The law still applies, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't have anything to do with these organizations tending to a suit that might arise from an issue of a camp or clinic that's outside of that roster. Does that make sense? Correct. Yep. So as you guys know, the USA Hockey insurance that applies when you guys register with us obviously would not apply in that scenario either. I think that was the point of clarification. Thank you.
Good, Mo? Can everybody hear me okay back there? Solid. Thank you. Gentlemen, ladies, my name is Stu Grimson. I'm general counsel to the ACHA. So Mo did mention we've got a couple of pieces of business left here in kind of the general membership session, and the board has asked me to kind of moderate and facilitate all that. So let's try and push through that as quickly as we possibly can, expeditiously but thorough at the same time. We were going to have a break, but just to kind of get back on track and so we can get to lunch on time and we can get you to your breakout sessions on time. If everybody's okay with that, let's just push through. I think we can handle this in a fairly straightforward manner. Let's start with the proposals that are on the agenda, 3 of them separately. Is John Rink in the room at this moment? John Rink, come on down. Come on up and take this mic here beside me. And just as John comes up, let me kind of go through the protocol that's referenced in the notice, the agenda for this meeting, and then I'll just offer up the microphone and the floor to John so that he can present proposal number 1, separate from proposal number 2 in kind of a second step. But just as we kind of go through this, let's just proceed in this way. The presenter, in this case John, we're going to give him 5 minutes to kind of go through his proposal. We'll have some space for a member debate after that. If you have a question, a concern, a point of view that you'd like to articulate, please put your hand up. And remember, this is a member issue, members only, please, if you would, in terms of articulating some point of view. And let's try to keep our remarks fairly brief. I'm going to try to keep an eye on time as we go through this. If you see me wagging my phone at you, you're probably approaching the 2-minute mark, time to wrap up. And if you could too, please keep your comments to new subject matter. We'll see the eyes rolling if somebody's articulating a point of view that somebody articulated just a couple of minutes prior. So let's keep it to new subject matter as we kind of get through that. And we'll give John in this case, but the presenter in any case, an opportunity at the close of any debate out there, an opportunity to kind of rebut and address some of the issues that have kind of come up as a closing matter, and then ultimately we'll put that to a vote. Does that make sense? Does that sound okay to everybody? John, if I can leave it to you, go ahead. Proposal number 1 on your agenda, the attachment number 1 to the general membership agenda.
Thank you, Stu. Test. There we go. Thank you. Thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to present on behalf of the DVCHC our proposal. I know it's been distributed, but I'll just read it for sake of making sure it's officially out there. Our proposal from the DVCHC is that all ACHA members be permitted to vote by delegating their team's proxy in writing to a league advocate that's attending Naples. The purpose that I have this here is that the purpose for the revision to the bylaw would be to allow every single dues-paying member, whether they can afford or have the time to come down here or not, the opportunity to have a say in what actually gets decided on. We've got various different levels of programs, from novice to the top level programs. Everybody pays their dues. Everybody should have a say. Our per bylaw, the current bylaws, Article 14, which is the provisions for the change of a bylaw, state that bylaws may be amended by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the members present at a meeting publicized 2 weeks in advance. The DVCHC is proposing a change to the bylaws to add a more modern definition of the phrase members present at a meeting. Present at a meeting was 1983 in Chicago when there was 15 teams, okay? We've got technology. We can have meetings in all kinds of different ways. But the idea is the bylaws are still outdated. They represent a league that was small enough where everybody could get to a meeting. Now we're too large at this point at 531 teams to do that. So we would like to change the language on Article 14 to members present at the meeting or exercising their vote through assignment of their proxy to their league official that is attending the national conference. Right now, the bylaw reads, Article 15, Section 8 says, at no time shall proxy votes be acceptable at meetings of the membership or board of directors. We would like to change that, and I'll put it out to the floor for discussion, that proxy votes are acceptable if they are submitted and delivered to the ACHA no later than 1 week prior to the meeting. So I'll open the floor.
Okay, maybe just as we do, that concludes your comments?
Yes.
John, thank you. Just as we do, and as we get into some debate on this, can I get a second from the floor? There's a motion before it to adopt John's proposal. Can I get a second from the floor? And sir, as you do, could you just state your name and your school affiliation? Okay, just for purposes of the notes. And you got that, Paul? You got the second?
He did now.
He's got it. We're good. I'm getting So the floor is yours then, ladies and gentlemen. Please, members, if you have points of view, if you have questions or concerns, something you'd like to articulate as to proposal one, by all means, the floor is yours.
Hey, Stu, I have a mic here. I'm Ed in the middle.
Yep.
We're all on camera and it's recorded, so let's get him on mic.
Sure.
Okay, so, obviously proxy voting makes sense. Are we still looking at the same quorum by proxy voting? There's a quorum mentioned in the bylaws. I believe it's 66%. So are we still looking at the same?
Two-thirds.
Okay. And are we still?
Two-thirds to amend the
So
bylaws.
we're still keeping that with the proxy? Are we still keeping the quorum the same, or is the quorum also changing to just who casted votes?
I'm not.
Okay, so in order to make a change, you need a quorum. Are we keeping that quorum number at 2/3, or are we changing it to the quorum is just the members that voted? In other words, are we keeping a 2/3 quorum vote to make changes?
2/3 of the people in this room, according to our
So
bylaws.
it's just 2/3 present.
2/3 of the people in this room need to vote in favor of this proposal, for example, in order to have it adopted as part of the bylaws.
Okay, so an annual meeting quorum isn't 2/3 then?
An annual meeting quorum?
A quorum to change the bylaws is not
Right.
2/3.
That is an area, and the board actually recently took this up. It's somewhat murky in terms of what constitutes quorum for a general membership meeting. The board took this up yesterday, and the board is, within its purview, its authority, its responsibility and power, is essentially taking the following position. And this will be reflected in the minutes that come out of the current board meeting. The members physically present at a general membership meeting shall constitute a quorum, as opposed to, and really the other argument, the other defensible argument in the bylaws is majority of the membership, so somewhere north of 50%. Does that make sense? That's quorum. That's the other argument. But again, the way we've acted in the past, done business in the past, quorum for membership purposes is those members physically present in this room. Does that make sense? Okay.
And if I could add, the idea here is to redefine the term present at the meeting. Once again, there's not 18 teams like there was 35 years ago. So now we have 531 members paying dues that need to vote.
Any other comments? Striped shirt, hard left. There you go.
Steve Kuchera, University of Tampa. First question, do we have a quorum today?
We do.
Normally when I attend meetings, at the beginning of the meeting, they announce we have a quorum. So I would suggest going forward, meetings begin by the announcement of whoever is initiating the meeting that a quorum is present. So that's established. I'm not sure, I can't speak for Mike, but if we're looking to have proxy voters, which I wholeheartedly support, one of the things we might want to consider either through an amendment or after this motion is the establishment of a quorum. If people are attending by proxy, it seems to me there's no reason not to include them in consideration for the establishment of a quorum. So I'm curious as to your opinion with regards to membership who's attending by proxy, if this is a past to be part of establishing a quorum.
I would expect that they would, to your point.
Then I would like to offer an amendment which, per Robert's rules, if we're following them, which I believe we are, you could accept as a friendly amendment. I'd like to offer an amendment. If you don't accept as a friendly amendment, then we have to have a second and then a vote on it. That individuals who attend by proxy, if this is approved, are also included in the account to establish a quorum for business conducted at a meeting.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment. Do I need a second for that?
No, you don't need a second for a friendly amendment.
Thank you. Is somebody taking the notes on this? Okay.
There's a hand up down front, 3 rows back.
Go, Eddie.
It's live.
Yes, just a follow-up to that gentleman's question. It's more of a quorum question. And I'm still just confused with the nature of a quorum. It should be defined by membership total and 2/3 of membership total, which is my understanding to prevent spontaneous meetings of a group to then move forward on different proposals. So I'm still confused on the definition of what constitutes a proper quorum to even then vote on items.
What I articulated to, and really, to the extent we can, I think we should direct our comments to John's proposal. That's really the subject matter before us. But the board has taken this up, and the board has interpreted the bylaws to read the members present, physically present in this room at a membership meeting constitutes quorum. To the extent that you reference 2/3, that relates to an amendment to the bylaws. So there's really no discussion of anything with respect to 66% or 2/3 as it relates to quorum. Go ahead.
What would stop us from forcing this one to the next room and saying, hey, 2/3 of the people in that room
I'm not sure I have a good answer for you, but I'm sure the hypotheticals are numerous.
that's why the notion of a quorum
Mm-hmm.
places to prevent unscheduled meetings from rules and pass. You have to form a quorum based on, in this case, 2/3.
Right.
If I could, just real quick, and
By
I
all
know
means.
this is separate than the proxy question, but Article 13 tells us that any changes to policies or procedures may be formulated and initiated by the Board of Directors, but must be approved by the majority vote by those in attendance at any association meeting. But they must be submitted in advance, which would stop you from going across the street and do this. It has to be announced that you're having this meeting. And it has to be directed to the board, according to Article 13.
There was a hand in the back. Go ahead.
I'm just one clarification. I'm Chris Garofalo, Stony Brook. So from a proxy perspective, I can elect someone, let's say 3 weeks in advance before coming down here as our speaker or our voter for our team. Is that what you're saying? And it could be anyone? I'm just confused. Like, I could have a friend that lives in Naples and say, hey, could you go down there and just represent Stony Brook, and we'll register him and do the proper procedures beforehand?
I would consider any friendly amendment that would define who that is. My thought process was to keep this simple, have the discussion, and if we decide maybe it's got to be somebody that's a member of your league.
Yeah, because look, we all take our time to come down here, and I think that's part of the process. If you want to have a voice, get down here. I don't think we should just have random people that we want to represent our schools. Like, hey, I can't make it. Put me on speaker. I'll just, I'll be there, but you raise your hand. I'll tell you what to raise. I think that's the whole point of this meeting. You make time, you come down, you care. It should be you representing your team, not some third party. I don't know, that's just my opinion. I think this is going to open up a big can of worms if we let anybody come do this for your team. Thank you.
Right there, it's great.
Mike Jovis, Robert Morris University. I don't think we should make the assumption just because people aren't here, they don't care.
Thank you. Right.
Sir, could I don't mean to short circuit you. You did speak once. Could I exhaust any other?
Actually, what I have to speak to speaks to my amendment. So I'd actually like to suggest that, given the amendment I offered, that it be seconded and voted upon. Since we have the possibility of other amendments coming forward, I suggest we go through a process where we just, if people want to amend, we just follow the procedure to vote for amendments. So that's the only thing I would like to say. So I offered an amendment which John sounds like he's good with. Is anybody willing to second it? Basically, anybody who attends by proxy is counted in the quorum. I turn the floor back over to you.
Is that your amended proposal?
I didn't hear him.
And
It's what I said earlier, where anybody who attends by proxy is included in the
Yes.
count of a quorum.
as part
Yes.
of the quorum.
So I suggest we just go through the process, because we could potentially have other amendments. It could make the whole amending process rather messy. Let's just, if people like the idea, let's vote on it. If they don't, no harm, no foul, throw it out.
I believe there's a question directly behind you.
So you raise your hand?
He did, he pointed me
Oh,
out.
I'm sorry, my apologies.
Chris Van Timmer from Hope College, just a quick question. If you are taking somebody's proxy vote, so Team X told me to vote for them on this proposal and they said vote yes, if there are friendly amendments made to any of these proposals, which there always are here, that proxy vote does not count, correct? I guess that's a question I'm asking. If there's a actual proposal and they say vote this on this, and now there's a friendly amendment, that thing changes, that proxy vote does not count now. Am I incorrect on that or correct?
I would disagree.
Point of order, I made an amendment, it was seconded, so it has to be discussion first, so we have to acknowledge the second, then move on to discussion.
Well, Stu just mentioned it was accepted, but
I missed
it didn't need a second.
They didn't record the second.
Okay.
So to Chris's point, thank you for the question. What I would suggest is that, and then we can go on to this vote if you need to have it. If somebody assigns their proxy to me, John Rink from Shippensburg, and I come down here and things change, I still have their proxy. So I make the decision for the person that's asked me to represent them down here.
But is that how Robert's Rules of Order reads that? I guess that was more of a legal question. Or is proxy just a general thing? It doesn't define that.
I'm in sales, he's legal.
Yeah, I don't know what proxy defines it as.
And legal doesn't have an answer for you.
Okay.
If someone else out there does, it's one question. I don't have a good answer for you. Anyone else on the proposal as amended?
Just clarification. So, like, if I'm Men's Division I Commissioner Brian Moran, so a league commissioner comes down here, can he represent? Will he have the vote for all 10 of his teams or all 12 that don't show up?
I haven't put, if
it doesn't
you got
assign-
10
it just
teams
says
and
you
they're all
assign it.
registered members, and they all get their letter in 1 week in advance of the meeting, and it's accepted by Mo or whomever, then he has those proxies, or she has those proxies. I didn't put a cap on it, but if somebody wanted to suggest that, that's another discussion. I'd be willing to listen to that too. You don't want to have super delegates down here. We have 32 teams in our league. If we have one person down here, he won't have to buy a drink the whole weekend because he's got 32 votes for everything. So.
Dave Jurassic, Sacred Heart. I just had one question about what kind of controls could be put in place to govern this proxy method. So, for example, you have a coach that has been coaching the team all year long, and for one reason or another, he's terminated by the school, but he gives you a proxy to represent him. How do we control things like that? Or how do we control if the athletic director or the head of club sports wants to vote one way, but the coach wants to vote another way, but the coach gives a proxy, and maybe the ACHA receives two proxies, one from the head of rec, one from the coach. How are we going to control these proxies and the flow?
If I could, thank you, Dave. What I would offer to you is this. We have 10 members down here from our league right now. We sat and we had a discussion about these things that were published weeks in advance. If I'm giving my proxy to somebody else that's coming down, I'm going to give it after we've got the agenda that tells us what is on the list of items that we need to vote on. And we come to an agreement before we arrive here. That's up to the individual programs. That's just my suggestion on how I would handle it. But we met yesterday and we all discussed each one of these items, and we hashed it out how we felt about all three of them.
There's another individual directly behind you there.
Thank you. Okay, Don Lowell, UWEC, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Long story short, we have 14 teams in our conference, and of those 14 teams, we have organizations that are student-run, coach-run, and school-run. I can tell you that we're fortunate that I was able to come down. And we had a discussion at our conference, end of the year tournament, and we had all 14 teams show up. Only 8 teams made the tournament, okay? These kids care about what's going on. They pay their dues just like the top teams, bottom teams, they pay their dues. And one of the concerns at that meeting, when they found out I was going, a lot of them were like, cool, you can speak for us. You can be our voice. And I'm fortunate that I could make it down here. A couple days on the beach doesn't hurt, hey? But, you know, just so you guys, you know, it's not about, well, if you want to have a say, come here. I mean, Naples is not an easy town to get to. It's not a cheap town to eat at. Trust me, I found that out. But these guys care. And of those 14 teams, we also, in our area, have another 6, 7 teams that are not affiliated with the conference just starting out. Again, what we do here affects them. And these are kids teams that want to grow programs just like we've been growing. So I guess my argument is just the fact that we're getting bent out of shape over some of these minor detail what ifs, and we could what if ourselves forever. At the end of the day, we need to figure out a way to give these guys voices.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, I see your hands. You've spoken once. Just hang on. Just hang on. Let's leave space for others who have not spoken to articulate their point of view before we circle back. At the table in the back.
You can give Steve the microphone, but you will not get it back. He's our lobbyist.
My name's Steve Hyjek. I'm speaking in my capacity as head coach of George Mason University. I think that there are a lot of issues that have been raised that are appropriate, and I think they are verbiage questions in terms of how John's motion is written, which he went with the KISS formula, and as a guy who's stupid, I appreciate KISS.
I apologize. Can you move over so I can get you on camera? They can't see it. Sorry. AJ waving at us. Apologize, Steve. Sorry for that.
You're good. So, Steve Hyjek, George Mason. So, my suggestion is that that we could look at an amendment to John's proposal that addresses those things. As an example, you put a cap on the number of votes that anybody could have as a proxy. You make sure that the people who have proxies have to be in the same conference for whom they hold those proxies. That the proxies would be issued only by the university, club sports director, or some official of the university to be sure that way we know it's coming from the university, not a particular player or coach. And that it has to be written in writing to the ACHA in sufficient time to be able to validate that this is the intent of the team, and that would address a lot of these issues. I'm not speaking for or against the merits of John's proposal. I actually personally have to support it. But in terms of the provision, one of the things that we're talking about here are a lot of technical aspects. And so I think you can do that with clarifying the language versus voting up or down just because of the way it's currently drafted. So if someone wants to consider that, we could draft something up and perhaps come back to it.
Point of order, there's an amendment that's been seconded. Was presented. However, there needs to be a vote on the amendment, which was simply to include individuals who, if this proposal is approved, they are counted in the establishment of a quorum. So I say nothing to disrespect any comment that was made, but these comments that are being made subsequently are part and parcel to the motion that was forwarded initially. So I called the question on the amendment about including individuals regarding regarding the establishment of a quorum, so we can return to the discussion on the original motion.
So just so I understand you, you're calling for a vote on the amendment to the proposal that you articulated in advance of us
Correct.
voting?
That's Robert's rule. So there's a motion on the floor. Only one motion can be discussed at a time. An amendment to the motion was suggested, which tables the discussion on the motion. The amendment has been seconded. We close discussion on the amendment and have a vote on it. Then we return to the discussion on the motion. The motion still is not voted upon as business. So
Sounds rather convincing to me. I have no disagreement.
just need to vote on the amendment. We just need to vote on the amendment. It has no effect on the motion. The motion continues with discussion, the good discussion that is happening. This is not a vote on the motion. It's a vote on the amendment to include individuals who attend by proxy, if approved, in the establishment of a quorum, which is an important process for a meeting to conduct its business.
Would you agree, sir? And I'm simply asking the question. Should we put that to a vote? It requires 2/3 of the members present in this room to adopt that proposal, that amendment, correct?
No, you established a quorum. So once you establish a quorum, which you did, that's why I asked initially, we are now in a position to conduct business and vote. That's why I asked initially, do we have a quorum present?
Right.
So if you've
But in
established
terms-
if you established we have a quorum, then this is simple. A motion was introduced. It's being discussed. An amendment was introduced. It was seconded. Discussion of the motion, the original motion is tabled. We just now need to simply vote on the amendment, and then we return to the discussion on the motion.
And I'm asking, by which standard do you propose we adopt or don't adopt this motion?
Your current standard, because this is the motion that he's proposing that we are amending to include has not been approved. So this is simple. We just simply vote on it. That's
Yeah,
it.
but I'm asking the question again. You need to give me a number. In your view, is that a majority or is that a 2/3?
You guys established the quorum, not me. I asked you, do we have a quorum at this meeting? My understanding, unless I missed it, was yes.
Bylaws are 2/3. To amend the bylaws is a 2/3 vote. The proposal you're making amends the bylaw.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. So his motion does not amend the bylaws then?
No, his does. His does.
And I don't know, I'm with Hockey Guy over here. I'm not legal. Every one of these meetings I've been to where we voted on these things, the person delivering the proposal would either accept or decline. There was no vote afterwards. I've accepted your motion. It's going to be part of the proposal to bid on the bylaw change. Is that good? Does that get us moving?
I'm not running the meeting, so as long as it's good by the person running the meeting, it's good by me.
It seems like the simplest way to resolve it and leave space for potentially there may be another amendment to the underlying proposal. It seems like the simplest way to resolve it, although it may not abide by the Robert's Rules of Order to the letter.
Hey, Stu, real quick.
Go ahead.
We have it as a friendly and then went to an official, right? So now, based on that, it would go back to a friendly, correct? Yes. Correct. So the official's been withdrawn. It's a friendly based on this. Perfect. Thank you.
Terrific. And I saw a hand here. Purple shirt, can we get a microphone to this gentleman here?
Not on mic, not recorded.
I just make a motion that we vote on John's proposal with the friendly amendment.
Okay. I don't want to short circuit any further debate on this. but-
Motion's been made. If we got a second, you have to vote on it.
Thank you, Brian.
No nonsense. I'm for that. And Paul, let's have two people, Paul, could we have two people, one responsible for this section as we vote, one responsible for this section? Let's just take a pass through. Members who are now wearing yellow wristbands, could you raise just before we do vote, let me just make this one point. As you're wearing your yellow wristband, we're going to gauge that as a vote either up or down on the proposal as amended. Could you hold that hand in the air, the hand that holds that wristband? Hang on, before you vote, again, I'm just giving you the background here. And we'll count as we go. Our most recent and final totals on the members physically present in this room is 103. Mike, 100 and? If it's 104, then we probably need 70 in favor. That's 69 and change. I think to be safe. Can somebody do the math on that? What's 2/3 of 104? 69.68. Rounding up means 70.
Round down. Round down.
You round down?
Yes. I'm okay with 70. It doesn't matter. Let's get it going.
Yeah. All right. This is a vote for the proposal as amended. All those in favor, and please keep your hand in the air. All those in favor, raise your hand. And keep your hand up until we've counted everybody.
What if he's got an orange wristband on? What's that all about? No, there's one guy. He's got a couple of them.
104 physically present in the room. There are 104 designated members. Voters. Members are voters. Well, designated representative of your club.
Wristband.
You've been given a wristband if you're a designated member voter of your club.
See if you have 104 wristbands.
And there are 104 wristbands out as of registration today.
That's true. Good point. Are they in the room?
$58 voted in favor. Let's raise our hands, all those opposed to the motion as amended.
You're missing 4. That's not going to make a difference.
44 are in opposition. We're missing 4. Even if those 4 voted in favor, we still fall short of the 2/3. So the amendment as proposed is denied or fails. John, it falls to you. Proposal number 2.
Okay. Let's see. All right. Proposal number 2, along the same lines, to get the entire membership an opportunity to vote. propose that all ACHA members be permitted to vote electronically as opposed to only allowing voting to members present at the annual conference. Current bylaws, as I mentioned earlier, a presence of a majority of member programs shall constitute a quorum. Proposed changes will be included in writing prior to any of these things. The DVCHC is proposing a change to the bylaws to add a more modern definition, once again, to the phrase members present. All right, members present at the meeting or voting through the ACHA secure electronic voting portal. Once again, the idea here is we come to these meetings, we're on TV, people can watch from home, they can't afford to come down here, but are all interested, to his point earlier. They're members, they pay their dues. Why is it a minority making decisions for the majority? Your decisions may be right, but they don't have a voice. We have the technology, it's 2019. My question is, can we change the bylaw to add members present at the meeting or voting through the ACHA secure electronic voting portal? That's my proposal. They want to have that discussion.
Okay. You've heard from John on his proposal, proposal number 2. Is there a second on that motion? And if so, could you please state your name and your school affiliation?
Jim O'Connor, East Stroudsburg University, seconds.
Thank you, sir. Debate on the motion as presented.
I think we already had it.
Ned Glisson, University of Michigan. I think people who aren't here do care. I understand that, but what I'd be concerned of, it's happened in a lot of my other professional meetings, is you quit having meetings. Everybody just Skypes in or something like that. And I think what makes this group pretty special is the networking and the personal touch that we have. And I think if we take away part of the motivation to be here, then you start to reduce the effectiveness of that networking and the personal touch and the friendships and that kind of thing that are developed.
Thank you, sir. There was a hand here as well. Come down and to the right. This gentleman right here.
Just a subtle follow-up to that last comment. What's that? Ken Gaffney, LTU. Has your group that proposed these 2 amendments, have you investigated if this would increase more participation down here in Naples or decrease participation in showing up? And if a decrease, are you concerned about that?
First question. Yes, we've addressed this. We have about a third of our teams represented here, which is a solid group when you've got 30 programs. There is a lot that we consider, like we were just talking today, you know, if they knock this building down and, you know, we don't get to come to Naples, this is a nice event for us to have an end-of-year gathering and get out and lose money to the people you've, you know, lost hockey games to on the golf course all year. You're networking. So we've discussed that. We all believe that that's an important part of coming down here, and it wouldn't deter us from coming down. As a matter of fact, our league pays, as part of its dues, we pay for each of our divisional commissioners to come down here to represent us. That would continue. What was your second question again? Oh. It would stay the same with us.
Likely less people here, which is going to affect other events that we do here. Maybe even not even justifying having a meeting at all.
Do you mean it would lower the cost to the ACHA? Less people, less money. Appreciate your point.
Further questions, points of clarification, debate on the proposal?
Don Lowe, UWEC. Okay. A comment was made a little bit earlier today about the national tournament and how most of the teams there are there every year. The ACHA, are we here for the handful of teams that are here every year? Is this what we're about? Are the 14 teams in our conference here to prop up a handful of teams. And quite honestly, the good old boys club, that bullshit has to stop. We had the Central Division a number of years ago. Our regional tournament was decided by coaches voting. The same teams voted. The good old boys club voted themselves in every year. I mean, anyway, I'm not going to go into that. The good old boys club, I'll say it one more time, has to end. Or, what's to stop us? To take our 20 teams? Why are we in the ACHA? If we're not going to have a voice, I mean, you're going to...
Thank you.
I saw a hand right here, this gentleman in the red shirt.
Scott Grosky, Southern Collegiate Hockey Conference. Just a comment, I don't believe that the sole purpose for coming to Naples is to vote on things like this. That the sole purpose, if you had to pick one purpose, it would be the networking and all the other things.
Other debate, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Yes, please, right there.
Eric Ballard, University of Colorado. I have a question. Is Brian Moran in here? Where are you at, Brian? So I can only speak on the D1 side. So Brian, when you send out the surveys on Hockey Monkey for issues at the D1 level, what is the percentage of response back from those 60 D1 teams? 40%, 50%, just a rough idea. Close to 50. So my only question is, I don't have any issue with your motion or your change, but my question is, we can't get participation now on a survey. So is it going to change? Is this going to change the participation from 531 teams? That's how many are in the ACHA, and there's 104 in this room. And I understand the finances, I understand all those elements to get here, but if it's not going to change, the participation, and my concern is, really, the only concern I really have is when you send a proxy, you don't get the opportunity to sit here and debate the issues because everybody comes in with a different issue. The landscape's different from every team to every team, and I get that. And we need to be sympathetic, and we need to be, really understanding everybody's struggles and strifes. I have a little bit of a concern with sending proxies that, one, don't have any control, or is it going to really increase our participation in these elements? You know what I mean? I know I said that wrong, my fault. What I'm saying is, that's why I asked Brian what our participation is at the D1 level. When he sends out just a quick survey, sometimes I'll go through it and read it, and sometimes I just don't have time. So that's all I'm saying. Is it going to, in your mind, to do this, is it going to get more participation from our members to get more involved in the quality of our league?
It'll be a changing culture in a positive direction, I believe. I think that when I go back and we have our meeting next and report back on everything we've done here, the meeting is generally an hour and a half longer than most meetings, and it's a mandatory meeting. They're all there. They all have input, and they've all already expressed to us through many emails to the people that are down here what they would like to see happen. I would suggest that, the simple solution to these amendments to bylaw changes, it says in our bylaws, you can make a bylaw change at any meeting. Stop bringing them down here. Then you don't really need the proxies because any changes you're making can be done electronically at some other time of the year during a board meeting. Just post them 2 weeks in advance and then propose the bylaw change and then have an electronic vote or discussion about it on camera or on a webinar or something.
There were two hands in the back.
I got the mic, so I'll just go. This is Taylor Hadley putting on a assistant coach hat for Loyola Maryland on the women's side. Just in rebuttal to that comment, why not give the opportunity? Who's to say, is the participation going to change anything? Give the teams the opportunity to participate. I mean, my comment is just, why would we inhibit the opportunity for the question of whether it's going to raise participation? I just don't know that those are equal in this conversation.
Chris Garofalo, Stony Brook again. So my first one is a question, and my other one is just a comment. So I'll just go do the comment first. There's times when I see things on an agenda, and I come down here, and I have an opinion in my mind of what I want to vote, which way. But when I hear everybody talk and their opinions, it sometimes shifts my thoughts. So you're not going to have that ability if you do online voting. right? So that's going to be thrown out the window. So you're not going to hear other people's opinions and thought processes on what they're thinking about a particular item. So that's why I don't like this. The other thing is, my question is, what's the cost going to be to do this? There's going to be a cost associated with this. It's not going to be free. So do you know how much it's going to cost to have a proxy voting online?
There's 1,000 ways to vote electronically that companies are using all over the world, and they're not expensive. I work for a company where we're remote all over North America, and none of us goes to an office. We all work remotely from home. Yeah. We have debates on conference calls, and and I'm not talking Skype. I'm just talking, 3 of our meetings that our league holds are WebEx meetings, where we have a camera and a microphone so that people can listen. They type in their comments, and if there's a vote to be had, that vote doesn't come right there online. They listen to all the discussion, and when we call for the vote at the next meeting, that's when the votes come in. So there's time to digest, talk about it, and then vote on it.
Is that going to happen, though? People are going to get an email, click on a link, look at the vote. Are we? I mean, now it's creating another layer of process that you have to do with your teams, your leagues. I don't see people saying, all right, let's have a league meeting about these things on the agenda, and then we'll talk about it.
So your solution is to not give them a vote at all?
No, my solution is come down here if you can.
Teams don't have $1,000 to come down here. People,
Neither do I,
they
but
just
I do
don't
it.
have it. My wife thinks I'm at a work meeting this weekend. So.
We'll send her a copy of the video. Any new subject matter, new questions? Hand directly in front of you, right there.
Darren Glover, Western Colorado University. A couple things. Just to slightly rebuttal the comment of you need to get down here to vote. I think it's important to get everybody an opportunity to vote because, I would be entertained by the idea of who in this room could run a program off of $3,500 budget is what our school gets. So getting down here is a difficult thing to do. My only concern would be the standard of 2/3 vote. How do you rate that if all of a sudden you include all 531 teams as an electronic vote? Do you have to have the majority 2/3 of, or the 2/3 of all 531, or is it just to attend an electronic meeting conference? I think there's just a lot of gray area on you could change things without having a standard. That common denominator of 2/3 is going to get hairy. I love the idea of every school having a voice, but it's kind of wishy-washy for me right now on how that would be received because you don't have that standard. Is it 2/3 of 531 or is it 2/3 of people who chime in? Is it just the votes submitted? What would that look like?
I can only answer to what we have here. It's 2/3 of what we have here. I would assume that unless that bylaw got changed, it would be 2/3 of the members on the meeting, on the call or the webinar or whatever it might be.
Lady directly left of you.
Mary Fuller, the boss at Nebraska. I think with 500 some teams, they've all paid their dues. Everybody has a right to vote. That's my personal opinion, and it just makes sense. I understand when you are here, you hear the arguments, the pros and the cons, and everybody's opinion, which is valuable. Lots of people don't have an opinion at all until they hear somebody else's. And I think of elections for city officers, for the president, for whatever I'm voting on. I get to hear the debates between the candidates. One thing is, people like to come down here. This is our second time because we can't even afford it, and we're Nebraska, because football won't pay for it. But if the meeting were live streamed, the people that were not able to be here could listen to the argument and get some idea of how they'd want to vote, and then maybe the vote actually takes place online after the meeting. You have till midnight to vote online. The results are tabulated right away. You get to know what the outcome is. I mean, just an idea to get people to participate, for them to know what's going on with the organization, what the issues are, because there's some schools that you think they don't care, but they do care. They just can't make it here. Or they don't know that they should make it here.
Thank you, Mary.
Yep.
Thank you. This gentleman right here, burgundy shirt, 4 rows back.
Stand up, announce yourself. Jordan Promoter, Aquinas College, motion to vote proposal 2.
We had a motion for a vote and a second. Where was the second? Can I get your name again?
Ken, LTU. Second.
Okay, motion to vote was seconded, and I'd like to put the motion to a vote of the general membership. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please raise your arms in support. All those in favor, please raise your hand and keep it up until we can count it, please. All those opposed to the motion, please raise your hands and keep them up until we can get you counted on both sides.
No, that's Scott. Yeah. 50. It's not going to pass. You're good. It's 50. I think that's 50 no's. They're recounting again.
This is the no vote.
We're recounting the no vote. Just so we're clear, everybody with their hand up now, you're voting no against this proposal. So we counted 44 in favor of the proposal. There were 51 votes against. This motion as well fails. Moving on to proposal number 3. Scott Hicks.
Hey, Stu. Personally, I want to thank everybody. You all have a vote. You're here. You got to use it. It was a good debate. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. So I'm Scott Hicks with Miami University. I'm also the women's division vice president. My motion, as I have here, I've been working in our women's division has grown since I started 5 years ago from 40 teams, and now we've doubled that. This year we'll have over 80 teams. I am the only representation for both Women's Division 1 and Women's Division 2 for the board of directors. So my motion is to try to add more value and get the Women's Division 2 having a voice. And so and as well as adding, our biggest partner is USA Hockey. I think within the new contract, we've added a lot of value from them. They've come back and do a lot to help our members. So my proposal is to make an amendment to the bylaws in Section 2 to add 2 more board members and separate the women's division to have a Women's Division 1 vice president, Women's Division 2 vice president, and USA Hockey, which would be Ashley Bevan, on our board of directors. We actually have 2 members on USA Hockey's board of directors, voting members. So it's kind of a partnership that we're trying to build there. Again, I'm open to discussion, amendments, all that stuff. I just think there's a lot of value in our relationship and our partnership, which I think in the last 5 years, and Ashley can speak to this if you talk privately to him, has grown tremendously to be one that I think is the best it's ever been. So I think there's a lot of value that we both can add as a partner together moving forward. So, but I think for me, the biggest part of this is that the Women's Division 2 deserves a voice on the board. And that's kind of my avenue here. To keep the odd number on the board, I looked for another option, and that's the option that I went with to try to keep it at odd number. Plus, I think that as our membership has grown, more representation on the board of directors I think is important as the voice is needed. So,
Thank you, Scott. Could I get a second for Scott's motion as proposed? Sir? And what was your name, sir? Bill Wright with UMass Amherst. Thank you. Open for debate on Scott's proposal. Right on the aisle there, please.
Stand up and announce yourself. Bill Wright, UMass Amherst. Do we have a VP for Division II women's?
No, that would be appointed by the board.
Appointed by the board?
Initially, and then they would go on the same cycle. So it would be a voting position, and then it'd be appointed to start, and then it would be voted on as thereon after.
So no vote initially to?
The way it's since it would be an added position and it's not designated to that person, it would be appointed initially, and then in 2 years their seat would be up for a vote.
Okay.
It's the way I was told.
Mike Kanikiri, USF. We're in the process of putting a women's team at USF, but I do have a question.
Sure.
How, are the women's teams still subsidized by the men's side?
I mean, I don't know how you can look at that. And we've
I
grown.
guess
Yeah.
what I'm going to ask you is, because this is a question my school asked me.
100%.
Why? Because when I told them the fees and subsidies and stuff, they wanted to know why my men's students are supporting students from another school right now, never mind our men's students helping support other students in their school. So I guess my question is if you're being subsidized, I don't think an additional vote should be there. And this is from someone who's initiating.
Sure.
We're actually going to put a women's team in a adult league this year and move it to the ACHA next year. But
Awesome.
I think that they should be, you know, I don't think you get another vote until you're at equal grounds with the rest of the teams.
And that's fair. So my response to that is I wouldn't say that they're subsidized by men's. Our women's Division I dues have gone up. I don't know if they're exactly equal to M1, but they've gone up to where they are now as high, if not as anyone else. So you could almost say that they're subsidized by Division I in women's, if you want to go that route. But we've also raised the dues at W2 last year, and it's up for topic today to increase those dues to, again, try to get to a position to where that's not the case. If you look at the financials, I don't think that they're operating in the red. They don't pay as much. That's accurate. But again, it's a process.
Were you asking a question about the difference in the dues costs? Oh, okay. So the question was about the inferring there's a subsidy because the men's D1 pays $2,000 to dues. D2, D3 men's pays $1,700. Women's one is $1,800 and $1,200 for women's two. Part of the difference in that, well, first of all, each division on its own covers its own internal costs plus the admin cost, and so there's not funds from any other division that need to be applied to women's two in order to cover their cost structure in that. They have, for example, a much smaller tournament at nationals. They have fewer teams, fewer rounds in that, and there's other things that don't drive as much cost as the other divisions. They don't contribute as much to the overhead as other teams do, but there's no covering of their direct costs with that today, even today.
12. But I would also say they do pay their dues. So, you know, and they operate completely differently than women's Division I. So just in my 5 years, it's kind of grown. Both divisions have grown, but they operate differently. So it kind of goes back to the discussion previous. They pay their dues, so why should they not get a voice?
Gentleman in the back corner. Thank you.
Mike Petrusma from Calvin. And this question is more for Ashley's position on this. We already have 2 USA Hockey reps.
Yep.
Is this a little overkill, or is this something that we can change in our current structure to become part of the board?
That was in consideration, but again, there's 2 of them, and those 2 reps are not on the board of directors.
Right. So I guess that's what I'm alluding
Sure.
to is, are we, by having a USA Hockey position be on our board, when we already have 2 individuals or 2 spots as a USA Hockey rep to USA Hockey, why wouldn't we just take that structure and make those board positions rather than, you understand what
I understand what you're saying. The quick answer is make it an even number, but it's obviously something that we could look at having an amendment to. I'm open to that. The reason I didn't go that route is because it would give us an even number on the board. And I think with any board or voting, you would like to have an odd number to break ties. So that's why, Mike, I went that route. But obviously, if you have an amendment, we could obviously discuss that.
Any other debate on proposal 3? There's a hand in the mid.
Hey everyone, Dan DeMonte, Rowan University. The women's game's growing. There's about 20,000 girls between the ages of 9 and 11 right now. I think Scott's really, his point is that he's pretty flustered with everything that he's doing, and I think it's time to just add someone because the game's going to keep growing, and in order for us to keep growing, we need to have more people on to help out with different situations. So I'd like to motion to just vote for it.
There was a motion made to put it to a vote. There was a second on that motion. We get that, Paul?
Promoter at Aquinas College. Second it.
So as to Scott's proposal as articulated, could I get a show of hands in favor of that motion, in favor of that proposal? All those against the motion as proposed. All those against the motion, please raise your hands. I have 73 votes in favor of the motion. I have 11 votes against the motion. The motion passes, is adopted as proposed.
Thank you, guys.
Last order of business, folks. Let's try and get through this. I'm going to actually go through the ballot a couple of times just so you're kind of braced for our presenters or our candidates as they come up. We have essentially two categories where folks are running for different positions. Relates to ACHA secretary, that's a board position, and then USA Hockey College club hockey representatives. For the ACHA secretary, that is a single spot, of course. There are two people running. So as you're filling out the ballot, name goes first, school affiliation, and you're selecting one person under the ACHA secretary area, voting for one of those people. When it comes to the USA Hockey Club representative, you're voting for, there are two positions there. There are 3 candidates, so you need to select 2 candidates of the 3 that are running. I'll go over that again as we kind of get through this. But as we get started, I'd like to hear briefly from the 3 candidates we have for USA Hockey Club representative. Eric Ballard, are you in the room? Come on up, Eric. Ladies and gentlemen, just gentlemen. Gentlemen, if you could, as we kind of go through this, if you could keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less, that'd be great. And again, I'll go through the ballot as we get through each of our candidates. Thanks.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Eric Ballard, University of Colorado. I'll make it real short and sweet. I know everybody's getting restless. So I've been at the University of Colorado now going on my 6th season. Been in and out of USA Hockey with state, district, and national camps. And the purpose for me running for this position is to continue to bridge that gap between us and USA Hockey. I had the pleasure of going over to Russia this year with the World University Games and worked with Ashley and the USA Hockey staff. And I live in Colorado, so it's a really easy jump for me to go down and spend times at the national office. But I think that we have a great product here in the ACHA. And I think to enhance our game and our visibility and our exposure and to continue to grow the game, I'd love to be a part of that from the ACHA side and work with USA Hockey. So again, I'll make it real short and sweet. That's about it. I'd love to have your vote, and I'd love to be representing the ACHA at the USA Hockey level. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Brevity might be the sure solution to a quick nomination. Al Murdoch. Al, a few words from you, if you would, sir.
I know I'd love to have everybody get up and release their attention, but we'll pass on that for the time being. I have been the representative for USA Hockey and the ACHA for quite a number of years now. I hope to get your support to continue again by being one of the two representatives out of the three. At USA Hockey, I've represented the ACHA on the Adult Council, sharing information with them. I've also been on the Hockey Equipment Certification Council. Being a professor, still tenured professor at Iowa State, they call on me a lot to help with research. We've done a tremendous amount of research on helmets and concussions, as well as one of the more recent ones was goaltender equipment and the sizing and the number of injuries with the new style of play. I've also had the opportunity to watch this organization grow from the original 18-20 schools all the way up to 530, and I'm a firm believer there's still a tremendous amount of room for growth. On the ladies' side, I think I mentioned last night, you know, two of my granddaughters were there, and they're skaters, and one is a particularly good hockey player. So I want to see more college hockey opportunities for women. I want to keep this relationship going with USA Hockey, with the American Hockey Coaches Association, and this great organization. So when you vote, vote for Murdoch. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Thirdly, for USA Hockey representative, Chris Van Timmeren. Chris, are you in the? You are. The mic's yours, sir.
I'm Chris Van Timmeren from, is it on? Chris Van Timmeren from the Hope College hockey team. I've been coaching there for 20 years now as the head coach. I've been your USA Hockey rep for 3, men's 2, and both women's division for the last 12 years. I think I have a very good relationship with USA Hockey in those meetings and outside, and I'd love to continue to do that again. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. That's it for USA Hockey rep candidates. Moving on to ACHA secretary, there are 2 candidates. Brett Berger, are you in the room, Brett? Brett's not in the room. Dave Jurassic, I know you're in the room. Come on up, Dave. As Dave's coming up, let me make that final announcement I was going to walk you through this again. Again, it's your name at the top. It's your university affiliation. There are 2 candidates for ACHA secretary, just 1 position available. There are 3 candidates for 2 positions as USA Hockey rep. So you're checking 2 boxes on USA Hockey rep, leaving 1 blank. Are we crystal clear on that? Okay. Have at it if you would.
Hi, Dave Jurassic. I'm with Sacred Heart University. I've been affiliated with the ACHA in one capacity or another, whether it be coach. I've been the HCA rep on the Board of Governors for the past 3 years. I've been a regional coordinator with Division II. I've coached probably for about 18 years. I feel that the ACHA has great opportunities as far as bringing in more members. And I hope to be your rep as secretary on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. There being no other business, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We slogged
Hang on,
through a
before you
lot.
leave, sorry, Stu, we have a raffle drawing. I'm in the back here, Stu, before they leave.
A raffle drawing later.
I have
We're not-
$200 cash.
You're not standing between these people and lunch, I promise you that. So, on your way out, at some point, please execute as quickly as you can. Your ballots need to go to this gentleman right down front. And as you do so, you're adjourned for lunch. Thank you.